I need help finding our daughter. On a family hiking trip, our 6-year-old daughter, Agnes, has gone missing. I've called her name many times, but there's no sign of her anywhere. It's your fault for not keeping an eye on her, my husband Zeke says coldly. You go find her yourself. In the middle of everything, he drives off alone. Wait, don't leave, I shout, running after the car, but my voice doesn't reach him. Now I'm all alone in the woods, feeling terrified about what might happen if I can't find Agnes. My name is Marley, I'm 35 years old, and Agnes just turned 6. She's a kind and sweet girl. Zeke, my husband, usually doesn't like family outings, but the day before the hike, he suggested we go hiking. He's the same age as me, and he tends to be bossy and doesn't listen to others, which has always annoyed me. I wasn't too excited about the hike, because my asthma had been bad for the last 3 days, but Zeke insisted, saying the fresh air would help. He didn't even listen to my concerns. When did he start talking to me like that? He used to be so kind when we first got married. Is this what happens to a couple after 8 years of marriage? The day of the hike, we drove for about 2 hours to reach the mountain. When we arrived, Agnes was excited. Wow, look, Mom, I found acorns and pine cones. She showed me the things she had collected. See, I told you it would be fun. Let's enjoy nature, Zeke said. I was glad Agnes was having a good time, even though Zeke, who usually sleeps all day on his days off, seemed unusually excited today. It felt a little strange, but I was happy we could spend a nice day together as a family. After a while, we decided to go further into the forest to see a beautiful view, but after about 30 minutes of walking, I started to feel really tired. Can we slow down a bit? I asked. If you can't keep up, we'll leave you behind. Come on, hurry up, Zeke said, and they kept walking ahead. I was running out of energy, and my throat started to hurt as I started coughing. My asthma could be dangerous in this situation, I thought. Agnes is with Zeke, so she'll be okay. I should just go at my own pace. Another 30 minutes later, I caught up with Zeke, but Agnes was nowhere to be seen. Where's Agnes? I asked. She was with me, but she wanted to explore further and ran off, Zeke answered. You let her go alone? I asked in shock. She's too energetic for me to keep up with, Zeke said. If you're worried, go find her. She went that way. He pointed toward a direction filled with thick trees, and the path was hard to follow. I knew I had to find Agnes quickly. This was dangerous. Agnes, where are you? Answer me, I called out, desperately, but there was no response. After about 20 minutes, I returned to where Zeke was, only to find him talking to a young woman in her 20s. Where's Agnes? I asked. Oh, this lady told me she saw a young girl walking toward the parking lot, Zeke replied. I guess I'll go check there. No, you should keep looking in the woods, I said, but Zeke left with the woman, heading down to the parking lot. I went back to searching the direction Agnes had gone. It was eerily quiet, and I didn't feel like anyone else was around. Now that I thought about it, I hadn't seen many people since we arrived, except for that woman. What if I couldn't find Agnes? Agnes, please answer me, I cried, calling her name over and over, but it felt like the woods swallowed my voice. Zeke wasn't answering his phone, and I realized I had no cell service. Feeling lost, I headed back to the parking lot. When I got there, Zeke and the woman were still talking and smiling. I thought maybe they had found Agnes. Where's Agnes? I asked. Nope, she wasn't here, Zeke said casually. I couldn't hold back my frustration. Why are you so relaxed? Agnes is still missing. Zeke looked confused. What's wrong? Aren't you worried? Let's look again. Enough, I shouted. This is your fault for losing her. Go find her yourself. With that, Zeke got in his car and drove off. Wait, you can't be serious, I shouted after him, but it was too late. He was already gone. I tried to chase after the car, but it was too late. Zeke was already out of sight, and even when I called him, he didn't answer. He actually left us here. Soon, the young woman was also gone, and there wasn't a single car left. What should I do now? The sun was setting, and it would be dark soon. Thinking about how scared Agnes might be, I went back into the woods, but even after searching for over an hour, I found nothing. My breathing was getting worse, and the wheezing from my throat was stronger. It was getting harder to breathe, and I realized it was pointless searching alone. Finally, I remembered I should call the police, but I couldn't get any signal. After some desperate searching, I finally reached the police and found out Agnes had been safely found by a passerby. I quickly hailed a taxi to go get her. When Agnes saw me, She ran to me crying, "Mom, thank God you're okay. Are you hurt?" "No, Mom, I was scared," she said. I hugged her tightly, and maybe it was the relief, but I couldn't stop coughing. Agnes gently rubbed my back. "Mom, are you okay? Don't worry, we'll go to the hospital right away." I thanked the police officer, and we went to a nearby hospital for my asthma treatment. Luckily, it wasn't too serious, and I started feeling better after using my inhaler. But then, Agnes dropped a bombshell. "Mom, one of Dad's friends told me about a place full of beautiful flowers." I was with her, and the next thing I knew, I was alone. I was shocked. "Wait, you didn't go exploring in the woods?" "No, I wouldn't do that." Agnes pulled out her toy camera and showed me a picture she had taken. It was of the young woman Zeke had been with earlier, and they were snuggling up together, clearly more than just friends. Could he be cheating? The shock made me dizzy, and I crouched down right there. "Mom, are you okay?" Agnes asked, worried. Still coughing, I told her, "I'm fine," but seeing Agnes's concerned face, I knew I couldn't just ignore this. Zeke wouldn't get away with it. I decided to hide my whereabouts from him. I turned off my phone's location and planned to stay at my brother's nearby apartment. Zeke didn't know that my brother had recently moved in there. From the apartment, I could see our house, but Zeke's car wasn't there. The house was dark and quiet. Where could he be? I took out my phone and called Zeke. "What do you want?" he answered. "How could you leave us behind?" I asked. "Because you're annoying," Zeke replied coldly. "So, did you find Agnes?" "Yes, Agnes is safe, but my asthma has gotten worse, so I'll be in the hospital for about a week." "Agnes will stay at my parents' house." "Really? You sound almost happy about it." "I'm just glad Agnes is safe." "Take care." Zeke's words only made me more upset. He was not only unashamed, but he was also lying openly. He didn't even ask which hospital I was in. He was probably with her now, planning something awful. I was furious, but I needed to wait until I had proof. Finally, Zeke came home late that night and left for work at his usual time the next morning. While he was away, I installed a small security camera in the house. I could watch the footage, including audio, directly on my phone. Now, I had Zeke under surveillance. That night, the woman I saw on the mountain entered our house. They sat down to dinner, drinking wine, and getting all touchy-feely. It made me feel sick. It was a good idea to take advantage of my wife's sickness and take her to the mountain. "This week, with her in the hospital, will be heaven," Zeke said. "You're so clever," the woman replied. It seemed like she was a subordinate at his workplace. They were even doing something suspicious there. I couldn't believe this was happening. I felt so betrayed, but I knew I had to catch them in the act. I quietly left my brother's house and headed home. I checked my phone to confirm they were still in the living room, then I started recording on my phone. I opened the door with a loud noise. Well, aren't we lively?" I said. "Why are you here?" "You're supposed to be in the hospital." They were caught off guard and couldn't even separate. "Help! Someone help!" they screamed. It was no longer a shock to me, I just felt pathetic. I called for an ambulance, and soon sirens wailed. Neighbors gathered outside as they heard the screams. Zeke and the woman, only covered by bed sheets, were loaded into the ambulance. As his wife, I followed them to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor said they were fine and could leave. Zeke and his mistress were sitting on a bench, shivering, wrapped in only sheets since they had no clothes. It was so pathetic. "When did you get out of the hospital?" Zeke asked me. "I was never admitted in the first place," I replied. "I've been keeping tabs on you." "How?" he asked. "From my brother's new apartment," I said, revealing that I knew everything. "It has a clear view of our house, huh?" I sighed and handed them hospital pajamas I had borrowed from the nurse's station. I couldn't stand watching their disgrace any longer. They quickly put on the pajamas. "So, how long has this been going on?" I asked. "You've got it all wrong," Zeke said. "She just came to drop off some work documents." "Oh really?" I replied, showing Zeke the picture Agnes had taken. "This is you, leaving Agnes alone in the mountains to get cozy with her, wasn't it?" Zeke tried to act clueless. "She was gone when I realized it." But I replayed the conversation I'd heard between them in the living room. Both Zeke and the woman were clearly shaken. Still going to deny it? I said. About that. Zeke started, trying to explain. I can't believe you waited for me to be away to meet up with her. What's wrong with you? Look who's talking, I shot back. You're the one spying on me. Can you say that after leaving our sick child and me alone in the mountains? Seeing Zeke's lack of remorse, I felt my feelings for him slowly fade. I'll never forgive you for putting Agnes in danger. Divorce? Zeke asked. Why? How can you even ask that? I said, glaring at the woman next to me. If you're so well matched with her, then just go be with her. The woman tried to link arms with Zeke, but he shook her off and grabbed my hand. I was just messing around with her. I never intended to ruin our family. Honestly, it was painful and awful, so I'm breaking up with her. The woman's face twisted with anger, and she slapped Zeke. Are you kidding me? What are you saying? Enough. I said, feeling disgusted by their actions. You both are to blame, her for knowing you were married, and you for doing this. A nurse came over and scolded them, saying, this is a hospital, keep it down. They both quieted down, but I could see they still needed to do some serious self-reflection. You better prepare yourself, I said. I'm reporting you to the police for abandoning me and our young daughter in the mountains when I was sick. What is that? A crime? Zeke asked, sounding surprised. Of course it is, I replied. Yikes. Please, just forget the police, they both suddenly said, apologizing but without sincerity. I'm sorry, they said, but I could tell they didn't mean it. I bet that's not all, I said. I want the house sold, the property divided, and $30,000 for infidelity compensation. Don't forget child support for Agnes. Please forgive me, I'm sorry, Zeke said, but I wasn't having it. And you, I turned to the woman, who laid hands on Zeke, owe me $30,000 in damages as well. We can't afford that, she said. Not my problem, I replied coldly. You'll have to take out loans. Oh God, if you've learned anything, stay away from men with families, I told the woman. Please rethink this. Zeke suddenly dropped to his knees, apologizing, and the woman quickly followed suit. What is there to rethink now? I asked, looking down at both of them with disgust. No way. I'll be informing your company about this as well. Goodbye, I said, walking away from Zeke and his mistress, who were still yelling. I immediately went to the police and filed a report. Soon after, they were both arrested for abandonment charges related to me and Agnes. According to my lawyer, this was going to be a serious offense for them. Zeke and his mistress lost their jobs. I finalized the divorce and made them pay the affair settlement and child support in a lump sum. The money from selling our house was enough to cover everything, and I even managed to get a settlement from the mistress, paid from her severance package. While I was considering moving out of my brother's apartment, Ton, who had been so supportive, said, I'm worried about you and Agnes living on your own. Why don't you stay here with me? Taking him up on his offer, I've been happily living with my loving daughter and dear brother. With the stress gone, my asthma attacks have stopped, and I'm feeling great now.
My husband surprised me by saying I should go back to my parents' house because my parents are already living in our house. I felt shocked by his sudden words, but he seemed to think he was being reasonable. He said, Do you have a problem with that? Don't argue with me. I'm fine with divorcing you if you do. Lately he had been distant and unkind, and I had my own complaints. I had been thinking about divorcing him too, but I didn't think it was fair for him to kick me out of our home. I thought to myself, I'm the one paying $1,800 for our expenses. Does he even remember that? As I looked at him in shock, he got angry and said, Leave this house now. My parents won't feel good if you're here. I didn't really get why I had to go, but I said, Okay, I'll take all my stuff with me. Once I agreed, he seemed happy and said, Then do it, and walked away. Right away, I called a shop to sell my things. My name's Emily, and I live with my husband, Robert, who's 5 years older than me. We met through mutual friends, and our first hangout turned into spending the whole day together. Robert mentioned he wanted to be a voice actor, and I was impressed by his deep voice. I've always liked soothing voices, so I felt drawn to him. It seemed like he felt the same because we exchanged numbers and decided to hang out more. Before we knew it, we were dating, even though we never really talked about it. I had just graduated from college and started working, so dating someone more mature seemed exciting. My friend Ashley was worried about the 5-year age gap, but I reassured her that it wasn't a big deal. I liked Robert a lot, and he felt the same about me, so I wasn't concerned. Eventually, Ashley agreed, trusting my judgment. Robert and I dated for about 3 years, and then he brought up the idea of getting married. I had already told my parents about him and his age, so they were excited to meet him. With their expectations in mind, I often wondered when he would propose. He ended up proposing during one of his usual visits to my apartment, where we just hang out and relax. It wasn't the most romantic setting, but it felt like something Robert would do, and I was okay with that. When he asked, I simply said, "Sure, let's get married." So maybe we were both a little casual about it. After that, we visited each other's parents, but I didn't really connect with Robert's parents. When we went to Robert's family home, it was filled with what looked like old-fashioned items, but they seemed to be fake. When we met Robert's parents, they were wearing expensive clothes and lots of flashy jewelry. They seemed like they were trying too hard to look rich. Our tastes and values were very different, and I didn't think we would get along. Robert's mom even made a rude comment about my appearance, which hurt my feelings. I was surprised that the parents of the man I wanted to marry acted like this. But in the end, it's Robert and I who are getting married. If I don't like his parents, I don't have to spend much time with them. So I decided not to let it bother me too much. After we got married and moved into our condo, Robert seemed worried about something. "Hey, who was that woman in the blue dress at our wedding?" "Which woman in a blue dress?" There were a few guests at our wedding who wore blue, so I couldn't figure out who he was talking about based on that alone. "You know, the one who gave a speech as your best friend." "Are you talking about Ashley?" "Yes, she was wearing a blue dress." When Robert said this, he seemed a bit uneasy. "What's wrong with Ashley?" I asked, confused by his reaction. "Oh, it's not a big deal. The other day, I thought I saw someone who looked like her when I was going to work. That's when I remembered she gave a speech as your best friend at the wedding." I was confused by Robert's sudden interest in Ashley and his flustered demeanor, but he just laughed it off and went to his room before I could ask more. A little while later, Ashley called me with some news. "Listen, Emily, my boyfriend's coming back to the US next year." Ashley had been dating her boyfriend since high school. They'd known each other since elementary school, but he moved away in middle school. They kept in touch through letters and finally reunited in high school when he confessed his feelings for her. I always loved hearing Ashley's love stories. Despite her boyfriend being away working at an international branch for a few years, they stayed close and communicated regularly. "Do you think he might propose once he's back, and then you guys will get married?" "Oh, Emily, you're always jumping to conclusions. Just make sure to invite me to the wedding. I promise I'll give a heartfelt speech." "Of course. After the beautiful speech you gave at your wedding, I'll definitely need you to do the same for mine." Don't set the bar too high. We chuckled together as we sipped our tea. Our conversations flowed easily, and we trusted each other completely. Whenever one of us had a problem, the other was always there, ready to lend a listening ear. Around this time, I began to notice that Robert was coming home later and later. "Working late again today?" "Yeah, you think I shouldn't work or something?" Even after we got married, Robert held onto his dream of becoming a voice actor. He was working hard to pursue his passion, but it meant he had to take on part-time jobs to make ends meet. Unfortunately, all the money he earned from those jobs went straight into his voice acting classes, so I had to cover all our living expenses. This meant we couldn't really save up together. As time went on, I realized that Robert wasn't willing to give up on his dream for the sake of our family. I started to worry about how much overtime Robert was putting in at his part-time job. It added to my concerns about our financial situation. "Hey, haven't you been working too much lately? They shouldn't be making you do so much overtime, even if it's just a part-time job." "I told you I'm fine. More money is always better. Just keep your opinions to yourself." By then, Robert had stopped using my name and just called me you. When we got married, I thought he would speak to me kindly and more often, but it seemed like harsh words were all I heard from him. His once gentle voice had turned rough, and he started drinking a lot. Sometimes his voice even sounded hoarse, which worried me because voice acting requires a healthy throat. But it seemed like he didn't want to hear about it. He started avoiding talking to me, and eventually he would ignore me even when we were in the same room. That's when Ashley called me. She said she had something important to discuss. So I suggested we meet up since I had my own worries. We decided to meet at a karaoke booth so we could talk privately. Ashley seemed really cautious and picked a room where she could see the counter and staff from the door. You chose this room specifically? Yes, I wanted a spot where the staff could see if there was a suspicious person outside our door. A suspicious person? Is that related to what you wanted to discuss? Ashley nodded in response to my question. She had been feeling like someone was following her ever since she left her job about a month ago. Now, she even felt followed on her days off. The reason she chose a room where the staff could easily see was that she thought the person stalking her might try to eavesdrop on our conversation. Did you talk to the police about it? I tried, but since there's no actual contact, they can't do much. What about your boyfriend? He's coming back in a month. I thought I'd discuss it with him too, but I wanted to first talk to you, someone close by. I see. Ashley hadn't gotten a good look at her stalker because she was too scared, so she didn't know if it was a man or a woman. I decided to keep an eye out from a distance to identify the person stalking her, and through that, I came to understand who it was. Though I couldn't bring myself to discuss my troubled relationship with Robert, looking back, maybe it was for the best, because the one following my best friend Ashley was none other than my husband Robert. He would claim he had to work late every day, but after his shift, he would hang around near Ashley's workplace and follow her when she left. I couldn't believe that the person scaring Ashley was someone so close to me. When I found out, I was shocked, and the expression on Robert's face as he followed Ashley was chilling. He had this creepy, unsettling grin. I fell in love with and married this man, but the moment I saw his true face, the love I thought would last forever turned cold. I told Ashley the truth and urged her to move right away. With the help of her colleagues, she arranged for someone to drive her from the underground parking lot to her new place for a while. After we took these precautions, Robert's frustration grew, and one day, it boiled over. My parents are going to live here, so you need to go back to your parents' house. I was shocked by Robert's sudden demand, but he seemed convinced he was being reasonable. If you have a problem with that, then I'm fine with divorcing you, he said, starting to lose his temper. Even though I had my own issues with him and had considered divorce, I didn't think he could just kick me out of our home. I'm the one paying $1,800 for our monthly expenses. I wonder if Robert even remembers that. When I gave him a skeptical look, he got angry. Just leave already. My parents can't move in if you're still here. Why do I have to leave? I don't understand at all. But I said, okay, I'll take everything I bought with me. Seeing me agree, Robert just told me to hurry up and walked away. I immediately contacted a local buyback service. The next day, they came to our apartment. At first, Robert smirked, thinking I was leaving. But when he saw the workers assessing all our furniture and appliances, his eyes widened in shock. After the evaluation was done, except for what was in Robert's room, a staff member handed me a quote, saying, "The total value is $22,000. I quickly signed, saying, "Okay, sell it all." Suddenly, Robert snapped back to reality and grabbed my arm. "Why are you selling everything? My parents are going to live here. How can they if there's no furniture?" I shook off his grip. "What do you mean? When we got married, you told me you were broke because you were paying for your acting classes. You asked me to handle the rent, furniture, and living expenses. I never knew you were that broke. I feel deceived. Remember the $1,800 I've been covering every month? From now on, you'll pay that. And with your parents moving in, I bet it'll be even more." Robert went pale, but he quickly tried to regain his composure. "You thought talking about money would make me cancel the divorce? Who do you think you are?" "I've already gotten close to a rich lady," he said, striking a pose. But then I remembered Robert following Ashley recently. If what he considered getting close was his stalking behavior, then he was seriously deluded. Ashley came from a wealthy family. Her grandfather was a businessman, and now her father had taken over. Ashley truly was the perfect heiress, but she didn't flaunt it. She spent money like me and our friends, and no one judged her based on her family's wealth. However, Robert seemed to have found out about Ashley's wealthy background and decided she'd be a better match. Could he possibly think that if two people are the same age, the wealthier one is better? That infuriated me. But Ashley would never marry Robert. Her high school boyfriend, whom she'd been dating for years, was coming back to the States soon. They would likely get married. I mentioned how Ashley felt really creeped out because someone had been stalking her every day. When Robert heard that Ashley found him creepy and that they weren't close, he was shocked. "I always walked Ashley home," he said. "You're lucky I didn't call the police," I replied. "But I didn't know she had a boyfriend. He's been away. She'd pick me over someone she doesn't know." They've been writing letters since they were kids and talk almost every day. And unlike you, who's only had part-time jobs, her boyfriend is successful. Even her dad likes him. Robert looked really sad when I said all that. But when the people came to take away our stuff, he seemed to feel better. "I guess you're all I've got now. You'll always support my dream of being a voice actor, won't you?" he asked, trying to look cool. I gave him a cold stare and said sorry. "I've already started divorce proceedings. Let's talk through our lawyers from now on." Robert, maybe thinking I still liked him, held on to me. "Don't say that. Haven't we been getting along all this time?" "Getting along? When? Since you found out my best friend Ashley is rich, you've been distant and hanging out with her." "Right after we got married, I realized I made a mistake." Robert started crying, even though he's older than me. Seeing him cry like a kid made me like him even less. I couldn't stand being near him anymore. "Stop it." "Oh, I also told your uncle we're getting divorced." "Your uncle? You know he's tough, right?" "Well, I've been paying all the rent and bills until now. When I told your uncle I might leave, he said he'd make you work for him. That means I can't keep studying voice acting. You hardly practice anyway. Maybe it's time to face reality. And if you go near Ashley again, I'll call the police. Goodbye." I left, determined not to turn back. For now, I'll stay with my parents, but I might move closer to work if I find a good place. As for Robert, his uncle made him work at his company just like he said he would. Then Robert's parents, who were planning to live off him after he married Ashley, also moved in. They all ended up working for the uncle. It seems like taking advantage of people runs in their family. I'm just glad I got away from that toxic situation. Age doesn't matter much, but I'll be more careful choosing my next partner. On a brighter note, after things settled with Robert, Ashley invited me to her wedding. She introduced me to her long-term boyfriend, and I truly wish them happiness. My marriage didn't work out, but I hope Ashley's lasts a long time.
Alright, this is one of those few times. I post here because usually these problems aren't as bad and I can handle them on my own. This time, however, it's gonna be a little crazy. Let me start from the get-go. Basically, what happens in my family is that my husband Gail is very attached to his family, especially his parents. It's gone to the point where if they jump, he's not going to ask why. Instead, he's going to ask how high. Obviously, that level of dependence and trust can sometimes come back to bite you even when you don't realize it. That's what's happening with Gail. He doesn't realize how damaging his dependence is getting, and when I try to tell him about it, he just gets mad at me. The very main reason that all this happened, and the reason I'm posting this story, is because my husband has been spoiling them since the very beginning. I get wanting to take care of your parents. I do. If my parents were living near us, I'd like to take care of them as much as possible too, but I would not do it to the extent that Gail and I do. That's the limit that I understand we don't have to cross. But Gail, unfortunately, does not. My in-laws have been asking us for money. Since we've both got stable incomes, and it's not like my in-laws are not well off or anything like that. They don't necessarily need the money from us. They can support themselves and even afford certain luxuries, so they don't need to ask for money, but they still do. Initially, I was okay with it because I understood that they're Gail's parents, and I'd need to fit them into our lives as well. But over time, I got a bit icky about it. We've sent them so much money over the past years that if we saved that amount, we'd be able to go abroad on a vacation twice. I told Gail that he should not spend all his money on them simply because, well, then there's nothing left for us to save. But he did not understand. He started arguing with me, telling me that we're living a comfortable and well-fed life. So why can't this spare some extra money we have and just give it to his parents? I tried to make him understand that it's not about not supporting them. It's about him not caring about supporting me. We would need money if we ever decided to have kids, and if we wanted to make a big purchase or anything like that. It looked like he understood my point, but he still was not willing to stop giving them money. That made me so angry that I almost left the house that night. My anger was fueled even more when I remembered how they treated me in the past. If they were nice and loving ones who treated me well and let me feel like I was actually a part of the family, maybe I'd be nicer to them. They were horrible to me. They never made me feel like I was a part of the family at all. And when I needed them to be there for me, they weren't. Someone Gail and I got married. We weren't that well off. I had just graduated, and it had not been that long since Gail started working as well. This meant that we didn't actually have enough money to invest in a house and buy it. I perfectly remember Gail and I going to my in-laws and having a proper discussion with them, telling them about everything we're going through and making them explain how hard it is. However, when we asked for some money to start the process, they immediately said no. It's like they did not even take any time to think it through. Instead, they just gave us an hour-long lecture on how we're adults now, so we need to be responsible and take care of our savings and whatnot. They told us that we needed to work extra hard to achieve our dreams and every other crap they could possibly spit from their mouth. I was a bit frustrated at their response, but I decided not to say anything and just kept my thoughts to myself. It was heartbreaking to see them not helping out their own children, but if Gail was okay with it, then I thought I needed to be fine with it as well. But then they did it again a year and a half ago. I inherited a house from my mother. It was a beautiful house, but it needed a lot of work. Obviously, we did not have the money or the resources needed to make these changes. I mean, we had some of the money saved, but we needed a bit more than that, and so we decided to ask my in-laws again for some money. Just a little sum of money to help us get the house ready to live in, but they said no to that too. And instead, they told us to earn our money and stop asking them for money. Not just that, but they told me to sell the house and invest in something that's actually useful and not something that looks like crap. As soon as I heard that, there were fumes coming out of my ears. This house was very precious to me as something that was connected to my mother, and to hear my in-laws talking about it like it was trash was very hurtful. I did not express that to them because I thought I would look rude, but I should have. Maybe then they would not be as shameless as they are right now. I'll tell you guys exactly why they're shameless though. So basically, after they rejected us, I gathered money and worked my butt off to renovate the house. I made it look presentable, and I made it look amazing. It was hard, but once I started earning as well, things got a bit easier so I could manage it. Anyways, it had been a few months since I invited my in-laws for dinner for my mother-in-law's birthday. By that time, the house looked absolutely incredible. I made it as perfect as I could, and I was very proud of it. Moving on, the day they actually came over for dinner, I was expected to go pretty well because, well, usually, if it's not money related, the conversation stays pretty squabble-free. Obviously, with these people, there's not one moment where you're not discussing money. So they come over, and as soon as they enter the house, their eyes go wide. Internally, I'm smirking because I know they did not expect me to go this hard on the renovation. Wide-eyed. They're completing my house way too much. I mean, Some compliments are fine, like "oh, you did a wonderful job," or "oh, your house looks incredible." But there was so much more. Every part of the house they'd stop, inspect, and then just ask me how much it cost. Why would they ask that for some stuff? Yeah, I get curious about it, especially because they knew we did not have the money. It's not like they gave us the money either, so I'm sure they were curious as to how I managed to afford all this, but honestly, I found their questions a little rude. It just felt way too forced. Like they weren't actually interested in the job I did or how pretty I made it look. They were just interested in how much it cost, and I actually did not realize it back then, but after what happened during dinner, it all made complete sense to me. Dinner was chaotic, to say the least. It started out very decent. It was a good conversation going on, and it even had a nice flow to it. But then my mother-in-law started talking about dream vacations. First, she asked me what my dream vacation was and where I'd like to go the most. But when I answered her question, it felt like she wasn't really interested and was waiting for me to finish as soon as possible. I gave her what she wanted, of course, and I made my answer very short, just the name of the place, and then she got all excited all of a sudden. That's when I get a bit suspicious, because there's no way that she was that excited for me, and then she opened up about the real reason behind all the weird acts that they've been doing ever since they stepped into this house. They wanted us to help them build a vacation house after all the years of rejecting us every time we've asked him for financial help. They'd come to us and asked us to pay for the quote vacation house. They're not even poor or anything. Why do they need our help? Why can't they save up enough and get a house for themselves? They think that just because I've managed to get my house to look so gorgeous, we're some sort of rich couple now, I guess. But we're not. I asked them to explain it to me a bit more, just so I could have a better idea of what they need and why they're getting a vacation house and stuff. But the response shocked me. They want to get one just because they're bored with their lives and they want a house to be able to go to every other weekend. For some reason, they can't afford the house by themselves, and they told us that they know that we've got money saved on because this house looks like it costs a lot. At that point, I was aggravated, and so I told them we did not have that kind of money to waste. That was very wrong to say, because Gail looked at me like I murdered his parents in front of him. As soon as these words were out of my mouth, he glared at me and told me that anything that we spent on his parents' happiness was never a waste, and I needed to, quote, watch what I say, which is ridiculous because he knew I was right. A vacation house is not a necessity to have, and it's not like they're going to die if they don't get it. My father-in-law still works and they can save up and get one by themselves. They don't want to do that though. They want us to give them money so they can take the easy way out. Then I remembered that Gail is not an only child. He has an older brother as well, so why weren't they asking him for money? I brought that up because they were getting too defensive and looked like they were about to make a living hell for me. Apparently, Seb isn't as financially stable as us, so they don't want to burden him with this. Oh, I'm sorry, but I could not keep my mouth shut at that point, and I expressed what I was feeling, but I made sure I was not being disrespectful. Seb was earning as much as we were. He just had children to take care of, so most of its expenses were going towards that. However, I wanted to try it for kids as well. And if we kept giving my in-laws money, how would I save enough to take care of my children? The counter argument we received was, that we don't have children right now, which means we've got more money to spare than Seb and his family. And then they started emotionally blackmailing Gail because they knew that they would not be able to get through to me. They started talking about how they were lonely and bored because both their sons had started their own families, which is why a vacation would benefit them really. Well, Gail fell into the trap because why wouldn't he? As soon as his parents get a little bit emotional, he does everything that's asked of him. I knew I could not give him in, but I didn't want my in-laws to know they've won us over. How I kept saying that the arguments were progressively getting worse and unstoppable. Well, this is the consequence of that. A week ago, Gail and I had one of our biggest fights. We've never fought this hard before, and it was actually a bit weird how aggressive he was. Obviously, there was no physical aggression. He wasn't raising his hand to me or anything, but his words hit much harder. He basically told me that $100,000 he's planning to give to his parents is not just mine, so he can do whatever he wants with it. He thinks that he was being nice by asking for my opinion and my permission before taking action on his own, but he doesn't need to do that anymore. The fight got worse when he actually gave the money to his parents, and he returned home from work one day and did not even bother mentioning anything to me. It wasn't until my mother-in-law called me to tell me that she got the money that I found out that he gave it away. I was enraged, obviously. We had not discussed giving the money away, and he knew I was not okay with the fact. Yet he was still going to go ahead and just give it away. He didn't even keep a single dollar for ourselves. The entire $100,000 he saved up over the years, he gave to his parents. Then, when I told him that he needed to get the money back, he told me to shut up and let him deal with his parents how he wanted. Even when I was factually arguing that we're a couple and we should decide on big financial decisions together, he wasn't having it. It seemed like he totally got tired of us constantly arguing because he threatened me with a divorce right in the middle of our argument. He suddenly screamed at me and told me if I tried stopping him from giving a share of the money to his parents, he was going to get a divorce and leave me all alone. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I've been with him through everything in his life, and now he was going to leave me because I was trying to put our family first instead of his parents. At that point, all I could ask him was if he did not care about what I wanted and how I wanted to build our life together, have children, and live a happy life. He cared for none of it, but instead, he wanted to give all this to his parents while I was suffering in the background. In a moment of anger, he walked out of the house and slammed the door behind him. And it's been a week since he's been home. I've tried texting him multiple times. I've called him so many times, and I've left more than a dozen voicemails. But he keeps ignoring them or leaving me on hold. Guys, I'm so hurt because I didn't think I'd ever lose Gail, especially over something as silly as this. I've contacted my in-laws, and it turned out that Gail had gone back to live with them for the past week. He hasn't been home once, and I'm so stressed and confused about what's going to happen and how I'm going to deal with everything. Update number 3. So a few more days into this mess, I decided that I could not keep myself trapped in this family forever, especially if they act as messed up as they are right now. I was not sure about my decision in the early days, but now, after waiting for Gail to come home for more than a week, I've decided that I needed to take action and set him straight. Well, if he wants a divorce, that's exactly what he's going to get. So I contacted my lawyer first thing that morning and let him know the situation. She let me know that I could not only divorce Gail, but also take him to court. After the entire meeting ended, I decided that I did not need this house anymore. The only thing it was doing now was reminding me of my husband and all the good and bad memories that we've had together. That's why I decided to sell the house and keep the money for myself. Gail could not even ask for this money legally because the house was in my name, given to me by my mother, and I could do anything I pleased with it, right? So I sold it. It brought me a lot of money, which helped make the court case much easier to process. So the next day, while I finalized the divorce papers and had them sent to Gail, I knew the exact time he received those papers because I got the most heated phone call one could ever get. He was talking about how I was being stupid, and it didn't matter because he was going to divorce me as well. And then he got to find out about me taking him to court, and he absolutely exploded. Obviously, no one wants to go there or anything, but I hung up on him midway because I've had enough of his anger now. Then the days of the court case came. I was feeling all kinds of jitters, and I was nervous. What if it went wrong? What if I lose the money I've made from selling the house? All these kinds of questions were racing in my head. But I did not let them take control of me. I got dressed in a way that I said was confident, put my best smile on, and I reached the court doors. It was the final hearing of the divorce, and it went incredibly well. Not only did I get to keep all the money from the house, I also got $100 from Gail as alimony as a legal obligation. I was shocked. I did not expect to win more money from him, but it was worth it for all the damages he's done to me and to my mental health. I should accept this money with grace. The sour expression on their faces just added to my glee, and I knew that they thought that they could rob me of my money and my house, but they probably weren't expecting to lose everything themselves. It's been a few days since then, and life has been relatively peaceful. I did get a phone call from my mother-in-law, where she was bashing me for what I've done and told me I could never have a family of my own because I don't know how to take care of people, that I'm just incredibly selfish who only looks at her needs and not others. Apart from that, it's been okay. I got a new apartment for myself using the money I made selling the house, and now I can finally save up as much money as I want without having to worry about other people constantly asking for it. But let me know, guys. Do you think I went too far by taking him to court? Let me know in the comments down below. I was a little surprised when I was reading the comment section of this one. Let me break down what some of the comments were saying. Some of them were actually coming up with the idea by saying, you know what, I don't really blame Gail. I mean, what's wrong with giving your parents $100,000 when you have $200,000? But there were other commenters basically saying, no, that's ridiculous. Like OP said, they've been helping his parents for years. They're trying to build their own house, and they need that money. So this is where the comments really split apart. They were saying they do not agree that OP should just sell the house, take the money because it's under her name. They thought that was disrespectful. But there were about 50 saying no, that was exactly what she needed to do. So guys, drop your comments down below. Let's discuss this one. My name is Mr. Reddit. I narrate stories every single day. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya. Thank you. Since we'll be departing from this place today, could you please relocate? We'll also cover the $473 monthly loan. With my daughter on the way, we no longer require your assistance. Alright then, please take care of everything from now on. Despite the substantial support we provided to our in-laws, they easily shifted their trust to the younger sister. As I packed my belongings at the entrance, I shared something crucial with them. By the way, there seems to be a misunderstanding. The monthly loan repayment is, as I spoke, their faces turned pale in shock. My name is Emily, a 35-year-old office worker. I've been married to Tom for 3 years. We met through a mutual friend who believed we'd be perfect for each other, and that intuition proved correct. Tom and I were drawn to each other from our first conversation. Tom felt the same, and we started dating. 2 years later, he proposed, and I happily accepted. Our families supported our marriage, and we had a wonderful wedding attended by many. After our honeymoon, we began our life together, sharing household chores and enjoying a peaceful, stress-free life. Tom, having lived alone for a long time, was a great cook, which was a huge help. We cooperated in all household tasks, and we were grateful for each other's company. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye, and our bond remained as strong as when we were newlyweds. However, a significant event occurred when Tom's father fell seriously ill. We rushed to the hospital, and after a week of tests, he was released, but concerns about a recurrence lingered. Recognizing that they might not handle another emergency, Tom proposed the idea of living together. "What if we lived together with my parents?" he suggested. It was an expected proposal, and I agreed. We quickly discussed the idea with our in-laws. "Live together?" Tom's mother inquired. "It's not a bother at all," I reassured. "Emily and I are worried about both of you." "Thank you, both of you." Our in-laws, teary-eyed and grateful, accepted our offer, reflecting their underlying anxiety. We promptly moved in with them, and the mother-in-law, understanding that both of us worked, took the lead in household chores. Thanks to her, we could focus on our jobs, and the father-in-law, now retired, spent his days resting at home, which significantly improved his health. Life was joyous, and we all got along wonderfully without any issues. However, our in-laws eventually made a certain proposal. "I've been thinking about this for a while. How would you feel about building a new two-family house?" the father-in-law suggested. "Huh, but this house isn't particularly spacious or comfortable for 4 adults. If Tom and Emily have children in the future, it'll be even smaller," the mother-in-law explained. "Considering the future, I've been thinking of building a bigger house where we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives. However, it's not something we can afford with just my savings. We will need to discuss and decide together." Tom and I were surprised by the proposal, but we thought it wasn't a bad idea. While the current in-laws' house wasn't too small, it wasn't particularly spacious or comfortable either. Long-term living there might lead to stress building up between us. Perhaps buying a new house where everyone can live comfortably is a good idea. After discussing it with Tom, we decided to go along with the father-in-law's proposal. Subsequently, the 4 of us visited real estate agencies to explore various properties. We considered making it barrier-free for our in-laws and ensuring there were plenty of rooms for future children. Ideally, the new house should be in a safe area, close to both a hospital and a train station, with easy access to grocery stores. Considering everyone's requirements, it seemed like it might be pricey. However, if we were going to live there for the rest of our lives, we didn't want to compromise too much. Every family member felt the same way, so with determination, we decided to build our dream house, even if it cost a lot. After some time, our new home was finally completed. The exterior and interior were both new and beautiful, lifting our spirits just looking at it. "This is really amazing. I can't be sick anymore. I want to stay healthy and live here for as long as possible." The in-laws expressed their joy. My husband and I were equally excited, realizing that this would be the house that would be with us for our entire lives, even when we have kids. "I want to play catch in the garden and have barbecues." "That sounds great. Let's make lots of family memories here." We were overflowing with excitement and joy. Living in the house turned out to be truly comfortable, and it felt like the pinnacle of happiness. Being in a comfortable home made me even more enthusiastic about my work. Subsequently, my work went very smoothly, and both my public and private lives were fulfilling. I genuinely felt grateful for buying this house. The months passed in the blink of an eye, and 2 years had passed in this house. We continued to have a good relationship with our in-laws as always, believing that the days ahead would be filled with happiness. However, at least in this place for life in our new home, something unexpected happened. It was when the sister-in-law and her husband visited our new house. "While this really is a nice house, it's not fair that only you guys get to live here." "What are you talking about?" We discussed and decided to buy this house with our parents. But I can't help but feel envious. When we were still living in a cheap winter, it feels like you're living beyond your means. The sister-in-law often visited our house during holidays and always expressed her envy. Every time, she would accuse us of being unfair. We've been paying the mortgage for this house, and it's quite a hefty amount every month. We're living within our means, earning enough to pay for this house. so there's no reason for her to complain. If we were to live here with the in-laws, it would be so much fun, don't you think? What? Can you even afford the mortgage for this house? My husband and I exchanged a glance. The sister-in-law probably just blurted out without giving it much thought. However, her careless words started to move my in-laws' hearts. It would be lovely if Kana could move and live here together. Yes, it would liven things up. Hey, what are you two talking about? Haven't we been living together all this while? Come on, I was just saying. Exactly. There's no need to panic, right? Ha ha ha. While the in-laws tried to brush it off, it was evident that they were enticed by the idea of living with the sister-in-law. The in-laws seemed to have a particular affection for her, even more so than for Tom. She is a beauty with delicate features and looks like a doll from her childhood. Being 4 years younger than Tom and born when the in-laws were older, they doted on her even more. This pampering led her to become quite spoiled, and Tom had to deal with her demanding nature. Having heard all this from Tom, I was always wary of my sister-in-law. For a while after we got married, Tom and I were both caught off guard because she didn't seem to be giving us any trouble. However, recently, she has been increasingly eyeing our new house. It seems she frequently visits the house during the day when we're at work. Oh, Emily, you're back. Then I'll be leaving now. Ha. I wish you'd stay a bit longer, but Tom and Emily might find it inconvenient. I don't think it's a nuisance. You might say that, but it's evident in your eyes and behavior. Unwanted guests should leave quickly. See you, Mom and Dad. Take care. When the sister-in-law left, the in-laws were visibly upset. They looked as if they wished she stayed longer. Even though they didn't voice their feelings, their faces and attitudes spoke volumes. Feeling out of place, I usually retreated to my room after work. When Tom came home, we head to the living room for dinner. The atmosphere around the dinner table grew more and more tense, with longer silences. Tom began to notice the change and started to realize that the sister-in-law was the cause. Around the time our relationship with the in-laws started to deteriorate, the sister-in-law finally made her move. One holiday, Tom and I went shopping in the morning. When we returned, there were unfamiliar shoes at the entrance. We exchanged glances, wondering if something was amiss. Then, the mother-in-law approached us from the living room. You're finally back. We need to talk. The mother-in-law's tone was different than usual. As we entered the living room, the sister-in-law and her husband were there. Ah, you're finally here. Kana, what's going on? From today, we'll be living here, so please leave. What? Tom and I were taken aback by her sudden declaration. What is she thinking, moving in today? Hold on, it's ridiculous to say that all of a sudden. It's not sudden. We've discussed this with Mom and Dad for a long time, the sister-in-law replied confidently. Is it true you discussed this with them? Tom and I knew the in-laws were swayed by the sister-in-law's words, but we had no idea things had progressed this far. Kana and her husband said they'll take care of us from now on. I'll do the housework and even care for you when needed. Please rely on us, Mom and Dad. If our daughter is here, we don't need you anymore. A daughter-in-law who doesn't do housework or have children is no match for Kana. What? I was deeply hurt by their words. Seeing my shocked face, the sister-in-law smirked. We'll pay the $473 monthly loan. Okay. Huh? $473? It's a great deal to live in such a nice house for that. Tom and I were dumbfounded. The in-laws were already planning to kick us out. After such treatment, we couldn't continue living there. Is that settled? We can't leave immediately. Could you give us at least a week? We need to find a new place. Fine. Ah, you're looking forward to living with Kana and her husband from today. The in-laws looked disappointed the sister-in-law, but she and her husband were extremely happy that we decided to leave. Calm down, Mom and Dad. The house isn't going anywhere. I'm looking forward to a week from now. The in-laws and the sister-in-law's family were thrilled to drive us out. Did Tom and I seriously consider co-living with such people? We quickly arranged to view rental properties and moved out within a week. The day to leave our home arrived. Please take care of everything from now on. Don't ever get involved with us or come to this house again. Their words were harsh. We had supported the in-laws so much, and they switched allegiance so easily. Now we can finally live with Mom and Dad in this house. Living comfortably in this house with Conant is like a dream. We got rid of the nuisance after all. Our in-laws and sister-in-law kept insulting us until the last minute we were leaving. Little did they know they would face repercussions after this. Well, it's none of our business anymore. As I gathered our belongings and approached the entrance, I shared an important piece of information. Oh, by the way, it seems there's a misunderstanding about the monthly mortgage payments. It's $1,825 every month, okay? Make sure you understand that. What? Isn't the loan just $473 a month? At my words, their faces turned pale all at once. Hold on a second. Isn't the loan just $473 a month? You misunderstood, didn't you? This house is under our father's name, so the loan is contractually agreed to be paid off through a debit from Dad's account. Emily and I were planning to live in this house for the rest of our lives, so we told him he wouldn't have to pay. We were bearing all the costs. So I was transferring $473, and Emily was transferring $1,352 to our father's account every month. I guess Father only remembered how much Emily puts in his account each month. Moreover, we split the living expenses equally. Our parents probably never thoroughly checked the cost and assumed it wasn't a significant amount. What? No way. We can't pay $1,825 a month. We can't even cover the living expenses on top of that. How can Emily afford to contribute so much? I don't know how you perceive me, but I'm department head at a major corporation. I earn quite a lot. What? Emily earns much more than I do. As the in-laws looked shocked, Tom continued, "It's simple. In-laws were unaware of this. Well, we've decided to cut ties with you, so it's up to you to support our parents from now on." No way. Emily, Tom, wait. We were wrong. Let's live peacefully together like before, okay? What? Mom and Dad, are you planning to abandon us? You guys can repay the loan, can't you? If that's the case, shouldn't you live with those who can? That's not fair. Dad told me the loan was only about $473. That's why we came here. We've already canceled our previous house. That's not my problem. Isn't this mess because you wanted to move in with us in the first place, right? Your husband earns very little, doesn't he? But you always said family is more important than money and pampered me. When our livelihood is at stake, all of that doesn't matter. The quarrel between the in-laws and the sister-in-law was unbearable to watch. Well, we're leaving. Wait, regardless of what you say, we will never associate with you again. With that, Tom and I left the house and moved into our rented room. Despite the numerous messages from the in-laws, we ignored them all. According to our neighbors, the in-laws and the sister-in-law's family had no choice but to live together. However, they couldn't pay the loan and eventually had to let go of the house. When they sold the house, a considerable debt remained. Even after using the father-in-law's early retirement benefits for repayment, they still fell short. Sadly, they now live in a cheap, small apartment, all working full-time and part-time jobs to repay their debt. Apparently, the sister-in-law's husband didn't want the burden to fall on him, so he ran away. If only the in-laws had continued living peacefully with us, they wouldn't have faced these hardships. But again, it's none of our concern now. On the other hand, Tom and I found our rented apartment much cozier than anticipated. We plan to stay here for a while and save money, living happily as our savings grow at an incredible rate. We believe it's essential to save as much as we can for the future while still enjoying our lives with the occasional luxury. We aim for a happy life together in the years to come. Hey everyone, I'm Tina, a 28-year-old woman, and I wanted to open up about a recent chapter in my life that brought some closure to a difficult situation involving my husband and in-laws. This all unfolded a few months ago, and the chaos has only recently settled. I'm still grappling with the emotional aftermath, and I believe sharing my story might offer some relief. Flashback to 2 years ago when I made a significant life decision, marrying my then boyfriend Jake. We met through mutual friends and spent 3 blissful years together. Jake appeared to be a fun and caring person, showering me with love. He hailed from a wealthy family, complemented by a high-paying job. Our connection deepened over shared interests, especially our love for travel. As we progressed from casual dating to a serious relationship, my friends applauded him as a great guy, genuinely happy for us. The relationship was smooth sailing. Jake's care knew no bounds. He surprised me with thoughtful gifts, even presenting a new laptop on my college graduation day. Despite his generosity, I hesitated about him covering most expenses. Jake, I'm just a college student. I can't afford to reciprocate in the same way. Let's at least split other expenses, I'd insist. Jake, however, dismissed my concerns, emphasizing his desire to spoil his girlfriend. He argued that many of his friends did the same for their partners. Gradually, I accepted his gestures, but I made efforts to reciprocate within my means. Upon securing a well-paying job after college, I was thrilled to finally return the favor. We transitioned to splitting expenses evenly and contemplated moving in together. "You can move in with me," Jake suggested. "I inherited my house from my grandpa, so you won't have to worry about rent. But let's split other expenses. It wouldn't be fair otherwise." Despite my reservations, Jake reassured me that he wanted to take care of me. However, we agreed to divide other costs more equitably, considering the difference in our incomes. Everything appeared to be going well until I finally had the opportunity to meet Jake's family, who resided in a different state quite far from us. Jake, caught up with work commitments, couldn't join them, so I was left to welcome his parents and sister on my own. Prior to this meeting, Jake warned me about their occasional judgmental nature, offering a vague heads-up without elaborating. He simply advised me to play along and ignore any potentially hurtful comments. Despite my reservations, I approached the situation with optimism. However, any shred of positivity quickly evaporated upon their arrival. When Jake's parents and sister landed, they appeared visibly annoyed, a stark contrast to the warm reception I anticipated. As we gathered for a conversation, it became evident that they held a negative opinion of me. "So you're the woman Jake has been seeing. I didn't expect to find you in this house. Do you even pay rent?" Sandra, Jake's mother, questioned with a disapproving tone. "No, Sandra, I don't pay rent. Jake mentioned that the house is fully paid for, but we split all the bills evenly," I explained, hoping to address any concerns. Sandra dismissed my explanation, asserting, "Just because the house is paid for doesn't mean you can mooch off him. This is his house, not yours. Remember that for the rest of your life." The conversation took an uncomfortable turn, especially with Jake's sister, Cassie, who seemed more interested in glaring at me than engaging in dialogue. When I attempted to include her by asking about her life, she responded with irritation, mentioning her marriage to a wealthy billionaire back home. Despite my efforts to bridge the gap, she waved me off, and Jake offered no support, seemingly aligning himself with his family's sentiments. Throughout their stay, Dave and Sandra continued to criticize me. They disapproved of my spending on makeup and skincare, insisting I shouldn't indulge in such luxuries when not contributing enough to the household. Their suspicion that I was relying on Jake's finances intensified, fueled by Jake's occasional unfounded remarks against me. For instance, he casually mentioned, Tina was a struggling student, even when it wasn't entirely true. When we first met, I found myself covering all the expenses, given that Tina had just started a job that didn't quite support her apparent taste for luxury. Confused by Jake's unexpected comments, I reminded him that we split our bills, emphasizing that I lived a simple life before and during our relationship. I clarified that any luxury items I owned were gifts from him, and I even used to scold him for overspending. However, Jake insisted that his status demanded extravagant gifts, and now I see it was more about him boasting to his friends. Their visit left a bitter taste, prompting me to question Jake about the whole ordeal. Unfortunately, he shrugged it off, downplaying the situation. "You're overthinking, Tina. Don't take it to heart. They meant well. What they said was disrespectful. Relax, you're overreacting," he dismissed. Despite my reservations, 6 months later, Jake proposed, and I happily accepted. We planned an engagement party, which we split evenly, balancing my small business on the side. Jake knew about its growth, but never inquired about the income. To me, it was a fulfilling hobby rather than a significant moneymaker. Deciding it was time to treat myself a bit, I opted for a grand engagement party, and Jake supported the idea. We divided the expenses equally, and I even covered the plane tickets for my extended family to attend. However, on the day of the party, criticism resurfaced. "You shouldn't have splurged so much at this party, Tina. You're draining Jake's account before you're even married. At this rate, you'll end up with a backyard wedding. I thought you were financially irresponsible, but it's worse than I thought," they remarked. I firmly declared to Sandra, "The party was extravagant, but we both agreed to it. I paid my share, and it was your son's idea to include everyone." Tina insisted a lot, and I couldn't say no. "I don't mind spending, but this party cost us a lot," Sandra retorted, accusing me of manipulating Jake into spending money, claiming he just couldn't say no to me. Cassie joined in, asserting that she knew the kind of person I was and that I should have fought better. Frustrated, I excused myself and sought a moment of respite on the venue's lawn, only to find Cassie and her husband Jim laughing at my expense. It felt like my engagement party was unraveling, with Jake oblivious to his family's judgments. Most of his extended family assumed I was jobless, painting me as a dependent fiancé. My mom, perceptive and protective, noticed my distress and approached. Aware of how hard managing finances could be as a single parent, she urged me to reconsider the engagement, pointing out the ongoing mean comments from Jake's family. After the party, I confronted Jake about the situation. He dismissed it as a joke, expressing his love and stating he didn't care about financial matters. However, I reiterated my desire to contribute, especially towards rent, but he brushed off the suggestion. Wedding planning brought more stress, with Jake's parents criticizing my choices and accusing me of bankrupting their son. I defended myself, stating that we were all contributing to the wedding, including my mom. Sandra's response was harsh, accusing me of robbing her son and insinuating that they expected us to empty the bank account for the wedding as well. I calmly addressed Dave's concerns. "I'm not asking for money, Dave. I'm simply letting you know that we can pay for this wedding just fine." On the day of the wedding, Cassie continued her comments on my dress and makeup expenses, despite my clarification that my mom covered those costs. The ceremony proceeded smoothly, but during the reception, Sandra and Dave couldn't resist bringing up my spending habits and accusing me of bleeding their son dry. Despite their negativity, I chose to keep quiet to prevent them from spoiling my special day. After a few months, Jake received a significant promotion at work, and he wanted to celebrate with a big family dinner. I was thrilled for him and decided to make the dinner extra special by offering to cover all the expenses. "I want this dinner to be extra special, Jake. I'm extremely proud of you, and I want to give you a treat. I've decided to pay for the dinner party completely," I enthusiastically told him. Jake was delighted by my gesture, and I explained that my business was doing well. I had a salary from my job, and I recently gained access to a trust fund from my paternal grandfather. I planned the entire event, ensuring everything was perfect for the celebration. However, when his family arrived, they were visibly displeased with the preparations. Despite positive feedback from others, it soon became evident that his family had issues with the celebration. During the speeches, Sandra stood up and loudly declared, "I thank everyone for gathering here to celebrate my son. He's incredibly hardworking and generous. He deserves this promotion completely." However, his luck just ended there. It's sad that out of all people, he was shackled down by a gold digger. I wish he had the foresight to see what his wife is. Then he wouldn't have to work so hard to fund her luxury life. It's now clear to everyone that his wife is a big spender. From the engagement party to this dinner, she pretty much emptied his accounts. Feeling the weight of the accusations and insults, I took a deep breath and responded, "I feel sorry for my poor boy. I'm glad he had Tina sign the prenup before the wedding. At least some of his assets would be saved." Sandra continued, complaining about her wife's spending habits, expressing relief that she earned enough to keep a trophy wife. Jake joined in, agreeing that he couldn't spend money on himself because there was none left. He remarked that marrying Tina was a mistake, contrasting her with Jim's hypothetical reaction to a gold digger. In shock and frustration, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Do you guys think I am a gold digger?" I asked incredulously, to which Jake added, "Your lifestyle is quite damaging to my bank account." Feeling hurt and misunderstood, I decided to address the accusations head-on. "Since I am such a gold digger to you, let me just show you my bank balance. I guess that will clear things up for you," I declared, revealing my financial standing to everyone. The response was disbelief and accusations. "Did you steal my son's money?" Sandra accused, while Jake questioned, "She must have stolen from you." Frustrated, I clarified, "I don't need to steal money from your son. This is all my blood and sweat. Also, I recently got access to my trust fund left to me by my grandfather. I was going to get a bigger house with it and surprise Jake, but I guess that won't be happening anymore." Despite my attempt to set the record straight, Jake suggested, "We can still buy the house. It'll be a lovely gift." However, I stood firm, expressing my refusal to accept a gift after enduring insults from his family. "This is not happening. Your family has been insulting me for too long, and you never once stood up for me. Instead, you made up these lies about how I'm using your money," I asserted, feeling the need to address the long-standing issue. Jake attempted to downplay the situation, claiming I was overreacting. However, I stood my ground, stating, "No, I am not overreacting. All the people here know what your family has been calling me. They were here when you let them insult me during our engagement party." Feeling the weight of years of disrespect and humiliation, I finally decided I could no longer tolerate the toxic environment. I sternly told Jake, I want a divorce. He attempted to plead and explain, but my mom intervened, advising him to keep quiet. "You never defended my girl all these years. It's time she ends this toxic relationship for good," she asserted. We left the party, leaving the shocked attendees whispering amongst themselves. Despite exposing Jake to his extended family, friends, and colleagues, I didn't care anymore. I was done with him. Mom and I went straight to the house, collected my belongings, and Jake kept blowing up my phone in an attempt to talk. I muted it and went to stay with my mother. The next day, I contacted my cousin, a lawyer, to draw up divorce papers. With a prenuptial agreement in place, the split would be straightforward, and I wouldn't have to give him any money, despite having more than him now. Jake and his family showed up at my mom's place demanding to talk. Mom firmly told them to leave, and Jake kept trying to contact me, sending a range of messages from sobbing apologies to threatening harm. I stored all the recordings, preparing for a potential restraining order. Despite the emotional turmoil, I found strength in my mother's support. Jake even tried to show up at my office, but security was informed beforehand, promptly removing him. It was then I decided to quit my job. Though well-paying, my booming business meant I no longer needed it, and I wasn't interested in becoming a millionaire. I simply desired a peaceful life with dignity, so I submitted my notice that day and decided to move forward. A week after serving Jake with divorce papers at his workplace, he showed up at my former workplace, only to discover I had already quit. Colleagues informed me about his persistent attempts to send flowers and gifts to my mother's address. We returned the parcels, but the harassment continued, prompting me to contemplate relocation. With my mother's support, I found a perfect house in the next state, offering me a haven away from my ex. Currently awaiting finalization of paperwork, the judge granted a relatively smooth divorce due to the solid prenuptial agreement. During the 6 months of separation, I used the time to gather myself. Once the divorce was finalized, I promptly moved to my new home, changing my number to escape the relentless spam from Jake and his family. I heard Jake's life was in turmoil, blaming his parents for the marriage breakdown. Professionally, he faced a significant setback, with colleagues avoiding him and seniors displeased with the negative publicity in their close-knit community. His parents resorted to spreading rumors about infidelity, but fortunately, these falsehoods failed to gain traction. On the contrary, my life took a positive turn. Focused on enhancing my business and relishing newfound freedom, I started going out and even ventured into the dating scene. Jake's insecurities made me cautious about committing too quickly, but I remain hopeful that with time, I will heal and find someone who truly cherishes me. While Jake's actions caused me pain, the strength gained from overcoming those challenges has propelled me into a brighter future, full of possibilities and self-discovery. I have a new girlfriend. I'm going to live here with her, so I'm divorcing you. And you're going to go to your parents. I don't understand what you are saying. I don't need you anymore. I can leave you with my parents if you want to be a breadwinner or a housekeeper, Noah. You understand, my parents-in-law and my husband laugh at me. They are the worst kind of people. But for me, it's better that way. Then you all need to leave. My name is Noah, and I am a 32-year-old office worker. I have lived my whole life working after graduating from college. I started working for a major company. For about 10 years, I worked hard and obtained qualifications for promotions. Thanks to that, I am now department manager at such a young age. I am blessed with a boss who always has something useful to say to me. In a group of highly motivated and talented subordinates, I was very fulfilled in my work, but my personal life was not at all fulfilling. I had a boyfriend once when I was a student, but none since I started working. Worried about my situation, a friend of mine hosted a dinner party for me. That is where I met Matthew. He was kind, had a nice smile, and gave me the impression that he was very personable. And since he was the same age as me, we had a lot in common, and it was fun talking to him. We soon became friends, exchanged contact, information, and started going out to eat alone together. Then he confessed his feelings for me, and we started going out together. We got along well, and he proposed to me, and we ended up getting married. I was so happy to be married to the man I loved so much, and soon after, I went to his parents' house to greet them. His parents were very kind and welcomed me with open arms. Noah, it's nice to meet you. I can't believe such a beautiful person came to be Matthew's bride. I am so proud of my son for bringing a good woman here. Hey, Mom and Dad, stop it. Noah is getting scared. Oh my, if you really think so, you can say it. That's right. It's a compliment, so it's okay. His parents were very friendly and easy to talk to, just like him. Noah works for a major company, doesn't she? Oh no, that's great. It's cool to be a woman who can work hard. Will you quit your job when you get married? No, I'm going to keep working. Well, you've got a good job at a good company. That's better. I was relieved. According to my friends around me, I had heard that their mother-in-law told them to quit the job. They say that they are often told that it is a wife's job to support her husband, so I was glad. I thought to myself that my would-be mother-in-law was generous. After greeting my parents, we were married. My heart was filled with excitement for the new married life that was about to begin. My husband moved into the house I was living in, and we started our new married life together. I'm very happy to be newlyweds with my husband, whom I love very much. I'm happy to be able to be at home with him all the time, and I'm also happy to have him home when I come home from work. 6 months into our life together, my husband said he had something he wanted to discuss with me. If you don't mind, I'd like you to live with my father and mother. What do you mean, live together? Yes, they are getting old, and I am worried about many things. I see. I can certainly understand how my husband feels. My parents are about the same age as my husband's parents, but my brother and his wife are currently living with them, so I have nothing to worry about. However, my husband is an only child, so it is understandable that he is concerned about his parents. Does this mean we are living with my in-laws? Yes, it would. But do they have a room available for us? They use every room for some reason or another. About that, if you like, I think it would be a good idea to renovate my parents' house and make it a two-family house. Two families? Yes, if we do that, it will be much cheaper than buying a new house. We can live in a beautiful and spacious house while still maintaining our privacy, right? I see. I thought it was indeed an attractive proposal. My in-laws are very kind people, and we won't be together all the time. If we live in two houses, it would be less stressful. Yes, that's fine. Really? Thank you. My mom and dad will be so happy. I was happy to see my husband so happy. Later, my in-laws came to visit us, and both of them were very grateful. I even thought that with such a kind and cheerful family, I wouldn't mind not having two households. Soon after that, my husband and I discussed remodeling my in-laws' house. The cost would be around $100,000. But as we were discussing it, my husband made a surprising remark. Actually, I have a favor to ask you. Can you pay for the remodeling? What do you mean, the full amount? Why then, my husband looked very uncomfortable. Actually, we are in debt. I was surprised. Neither my husband nor my parents-in-law had ever said anything like that when we were dating or when we got married. I was surprised. How much debt do they have? About $150,000. What? I thought it would be a few tens of thousands of dollars, but I was surprised at the amount of money. And I ended up shouting out loud. It wasn't so bad at first, but it gradually grew, and even if I tried to pay it back, I couldn't. My parents are already living on a pension. I can't pay them back as much as I'd like, and the debt is getting bigger and bigger. I see. I could not hide my surprise and upset at the sudden and shocking revelation. I had no idea that my parents-in-law owed me such a large sum of money. Noah, I need a favor. Will, you help me pay off my father and father-in-law's debt. They can't afford it anymore, and I don't make a very good salary either. Then isn't it going to be tough to renovate the house and live together as two families? No, that's important, so let's go ahead as planned. You have asked me to pay for the remodeling and your father's debt. I'm on the hook for $250,000, I know. I'm talking about difficult things, but I want to take care of my life with Noah. And I want to protect my mom and dad. It's because I love both my parents and Noah. I'm sorry. I'm being greedy, but if you really love me, please help me. I'll pay you back little by little. I was very distressed. My husband and my in-laws have no one to turn to but me, and I knew that my husband really loved me. But at that time, I was completely deceived by my husband's words. Love is blind, I think. And that is exactly what it is. Okay, I'll pay for it. I agreed to do so. Then my husband said, "Thank you so much." And he shook my hand and thanked me very much. He told my parents-in-law, and later they came to our house and apologized to me. My mother-in-law even shed tears of joy. I have to do my best from now on. I had to take over my in-laws' debt, and I was determined to do it. However, although I had some savings, I was afraid to pay it all at once. So for now, I decided to pay about $330,000 from my savings and then pay the rest in installments. Then my in-laws joined us, and we talked about repayment. I explained to my in-laws about the installments I had just made. They said that I could do whatever I wanted. Then why don't you transfer the money directly to the account for debt repayment? We're not very good at managing money, and I'm a little afraid to transfer a lot of money. When my husband said this, my parents-in-law nodded. Indeed, it would be time-consuming for me to transfer the money to my parents-in-law's account, and then for them to transfer it to their repayment account. And since it was a large sum, I would not like it if the money was not transferred in the middle of the process. So I agreed to that. Once the conversation was settled, my parents-in-law looked very relieved. Now we don't have to be afraid of the monthly debt collection. That has been really scary. Dad and Mom, you should thank Noah properly. Well, I can't tell you how many times I thanked you. I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. I'm so glad Noah came to be his wife. No. I was happy that my in-laws were happy. However, I felt a little uncomfortable because I thought that they might think of me as a money spinner. When they said those last words, I felt a little bad, but I wanted to take care of my beloved husband's family. With that in mind, I began to make payments, and at the same time, we remodeled our house and completed our two-family home. We started living together in a beautiful and spacious house. My parents-in-law were very happy, and my husband's eyes lit up at the new house. I too enjoyed cooking with the new system kitchen, and I was glad to have the remodeling done. It is more convenient and closer to work here. If commuting time is shortened, that gives me more time to spare. I can also make good use of that free time to study. I was spending my days working hard to pay off my debt. However, there was something that bothered me a little. That is, my husband did not help me pay off the debt at all. When I told him about my parents-in-law's debt, he said he would help me pay it off, and yet he has shown absolutely no sign of paying for it out of his own paycheck. When I mentioned this to him before, he told me that his salary was not enough at all to make the payment. I asked my husband what his take-home pay was and asked him to show me his pay stubs, but he stubbornly refused, so I don't know how much he earns, but he has to repay his debts. I worked hard for about a year to pay off the debt. At that time, my parents-in-law asked me how much money I had left to repay. If it's been a year, well, you haven't lost that much, yeah. At most, you'd be paying back about $10,000 to $155,000. Well, just to give you an idea, we paid back about $30,000 this year, so the remainder is roughly $90,000. When I said this, my parents-in-law were extremely surprised. What? You paid back that much, Noah? That's amazing. At that pace, you will finish paying back the loan in about 3 years. If I work hard, I'll be able to pay it off. Thank you so much. My parents-in-law were crying and happy. I thought that if my husband's parents were happy like this, it was worth all the hard work. A few days later, however, I encountered an unexpected situation. I had to work overtime that day, so I told my husband I would be home late. However, the work went surprisingly smoothly, and moreover, many of us had free hands, so we were able to leave on time. So, I hurried home as usual, thinking I would cook dinner for my husband. But when I opened the front door, there were my parents-in-law's shoes. Oh, my mother-in-law and her family are here. I thought they had something to do, so I walked toward the living room. Then, I heard my parents-in-law and my husband talking about something. You were right to marry that woman, weren't you, Matthew? You did great. I can't believe you got a woman with that much money. When I heard she works for a big company, I was really cautious and seduced her. You should be more grateful. Oh my, you're one of the people who created that debt. What? But I'm the one with the least. What are you talking about? How much did you spend on horse racing? Your gambling is terrible. I get a jackpot once in a while, so there were times when we were in the black. How can you be in the black when you owe $150,000? But at this rate, we'll be able to get out of debt and get back on track. That's really great. And she even remodeled our house. I got a really good wife. Well, I'm going to throw her away after she pays off the debt. My husband and parents-in-law laughed. I was so stunned that I couldn't move from the front door for a while. After calming down a little, I made a loud noise as I closed the lock and said, "I'm home," from the front door. When I went to the living room, my parents-in-law and husband greeted me with smiles. "Oh, Noah, welcome home. Good job, good job. Well then, we're going back to our room. Let's have dinner together again. I was so afraid of this gentle smile of my parents-in-law because I had heard their earlier conversation. Likewise, this man who was pretending to be a good husband with a smile on his face shocked me. I wondered what I had been doing to try to pay them back. Didn't you say you had to work late today? Yeah, I've been working a lot more than I expected. So I decided to hurry up and cook dinner and came home on time. Didn't know that. I tried my best to act calm until dinner so that my husband would not realize what I had done. Then, when my husband was taking a bath, I stayed in my room and cried alone. But crying as hard as I could made me want to give my husband and in-laws a break. I cried as hard as I could. From then on, I acted quickly. I began to prepare for the divorce and then steadily made plans for what to do after the divorce. About 3 months passed. I pretended to be happy and told my husband that I had paid off my parents-in-law's debt. My husband rolled his eyes. What? You paid off the debt? That $150,000 that was supposed to take roughly 3 years, right? Actually, I have quite a bit of money saved up, but I was afraid to pay it off all at once. So I started taking out a little bit from my salary and savings. But we were already below $100,000, and I thought it would be better to pay it all off at once. I see. And then I asked, "Do you mind if I check?" and asked to see my bank book. I showed my husband the bank book. Oh, it's true. $90,000 was paid all at once. My husband tried to contain his excitement as much as possible, but I could see that he was itching to get out of there. Wow, Noah, thank you. My dads are going to love this. My husband put his hands on his face and seemed to be crying, but I knew it was just an act, and he was pretending to cry. Soon after that, my parents-in-law also came and thanked me. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I met Noah. You're like God. If I had not known any of this, I would have surely been happy to be along for the ride. Having been deceived, but I already know what these people are really like. And I only acted because I was ready for my plan. A few days later, my husband asked to speak with me. My husband looked very serious. What on earth? I'm sorry, Noah, but you have to leave me. What? What do you mean? I acted surprised on purpose. I have a new girlfriend. What? I'm going to live here with her, so I'm divorcing you, and you're going to my parents' place. I was really taken aback by Matthew's unexpected statement. I knew from eavesdropping on our earlier conversation that my husband would leave me when he finished paying his debts. However, I did not expect him to openly declare his infidelity. What did he mean by having me go to his in-laws after you left me? I don't really understand what you mean. When I said this, my husband's mood turned sour, saying you're not very understanding at all. I don't need you anymore, but as a breadwinner or a housekeeper, I can keep you here. Oh no. Then the front door opened and my in-laws came in. Matthew, did you finally tell her? Yeah, I told her. I wish I could have been there for that moment. No, that's how it is. You can come to our house if you do the chores for us. Of course, we'll charge you rent though. My parents-in-law and my husband laughed at me. They are the worst people ever. But that's more than I can say for me. Then all of you need to leave. My in-laws rolled their eyes at my comment. What are you talking about? Have you forgotten? I can easily pay for the renovation myself. You changed the name of the house to mine. That's why I have the rights to this house. I can decide who to let live in the house and who to kick out. The faces of my in-laws turned blue at my comment. Then they finally remembered about the title of the house. I was really dumbfounded. I'm sorry, but you can't live here anymore. If we get divorced, you'll be strangers. Oh no? My in-laws realized the gravity of the situation. But my husband, not wanting to be outdone by me, retorted, "But you took over our debt and paid it in full. You're the one who's losing money. If we had no debt, we could at least afford a new place to live." That's true. Thank you for letting us live in a nice house while you pay our debts. My in-laws and husband said as much. So I told them the fact. I'm sorry, but I didn't pay off the rest of the $90,000 debt. What? No, but you had money missing from your bank book. That was just a separate account that I created and moved around. So the debt hasn't changed for $90,000. I just haven't had the collections come yet because I've been paying large sums of money continuously, but I think it's time for them to come. So, you are responsible for paying the rest. My husband and in-laws went pale. Then I shot them a warning. Matthew, you told me you were having an affair, so you should pay the alimony. I'll charge your partner for the affair too. Oh no, she went out with me even though she's beautiful because I own a house and have money. If they charge me alimony, she'll dump me. I don't care anything about that, Noah. I apologize. Please don't leave us. My husband is afraid of being dumped by the adulterer, and my in-laws are afraid of being dumped by me. They are truly selfish and scum parents and children in every way. I will have nothing to do with you people anymore, no matter what you say. I have also put this house on the market. I will also have you pay your debt of $60,000 that I paid on your behalf through my lawyer. Oh no, the in-laws froze, stunned by the loss of everything they had. I then demanded a divorce and alimony from my husband through my lawyer. I also demanded alimony from the adulterer. I demanded $6,000 from my in-laws for what I had paid them. Actually, that renovated in-law house sold for about $200,000. It was in a good location, and there was a family that was just looking for a duplex, so we got a good price. They were able to buy it. So I had to pay $160,000, which included the $60,000 I owed on the debt and $100,000 for the renovation. I had paid $160,000, but gained $40,000 as a result. In addition, I also get alimony from my ex-husband and the affair partner, which is a very positive situation. On top of that, I was able to get a small payment of $60,000 from my ex-parents-in-law. I am the one who is getting the most out of this situation. I think this is a reasonable request because the damage I have suffered was so bad that I distrusted people. As for me having that much savings to begin with, I was trying to learn how to invest so that I could pay off my in-laws' debts as quickly as possible. And since I had quite a lot of savings to begin with, I put a few tens of thousands of dollars or so into investments. I found that my assets had grown quite a bit in about a year. Plus, I had gotten a raise, so I was getting paid quite well. So I was able to take such a drastic step because I had saved a lot of money. I was the biggest beneficiary, and my former in-laws were back in debt, and they lost their house. To be honest, I think they deserved it because they cheated me like fraud. People like that should go to hell. For once, I should reflect on what happened to me this time and develop a better eye for people. From now on, I will also continue to save and increase my assets so that I can live a luxurious life in my old age. And I want to make many happy memories with people I can truly trust. What did you think of this story? And please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video. Did the items for Jane and Hannah arrive? Starting today, we're going to be supporting them, my husband Bob declared triumphantly over the phone. I was at a loss for words due to Bob's sudden declaration. It seemed like Jane and Hannah were the only ones on his mind, with no consideration for me. I contemplated discarding such a husband. Yeah, the stuff arrived, and I just moved into a new place. I responded in a deliberately cheerful tone. A new place? Bob muttered, then seemed stunned. My name is Caroline Smith, and I recently turned 50. I work in sales at a major company, and although the job comes with constant complaints and troubles from clients, it's rewarding and enjoyable. My only family is my husband Bob. We don't have children, and my parents passed away some time ago. My parents-in-law live nearby, but we aren't that close. We have a casual relationship. Bob loves dining out, often taking his sister Jane along for many outings. Jane's daughter, Hannah, always joins them. In the early stages of our marriage, I complained to Bob about him prioritizing Jane and her daughter over me. However, those feelings gradually faded. I want to repay them for the struggles I caused during my student days. After learning of Bob's sincere feelings, I understood that my in-laws are impoverished, living in a small, run-down apartment. It's incredibly cramped. Bob diligently pursued his studies, but he didn't pass his first-choice state university, only getting accepted into private ones. His parents couldn't afford to pay, so Jane, who was working at the time, helped with his tuition. Bob seems grateful to Jane for supporting him during difficult times. After Jane got married, she quit her job to be a stay-at-home mom, limiting her financial resources. After hearing this story, I stopped complaining, understanding the reasons for wanting to give back. I thought it best to let Bob do as he pleases, despite a bit of loneliness. "I'm going to go out to eat with Jane and Hannah now," Bob said. Bob is going to dine out with Jane and her daughter today as well. "Have a good time," I said with a smile, seeing him off. Let's continue to live supporting each other with Bob, who values family. That's what I thought. However, the rift in our relationship happened about 3 months ago. One day, Bob approached with a serious expression, saying, "In fact, Jane's getting a divorce. She's decided to keep custody of Hannah." When I heard Jane was divorcing, I was honestly perplexed. Jane was the type of person I found difficult to deal with, going back to when I visited Bob's parents' house before we got married. Jane laughed uproariously at me, saying, "Bob, you're marrying her? She's so plain and has bad taste." Bob and his parents didn't say a word, acting like they didn't notice. So I had no choice but to endure Jane's rude behavior as I remembered Bob's declaration. "I'm going to visit home every day for a while. Unlike you, who's thick-skinned, Jane is delicate. And I'm worried about Hannah too." Bob disparaged me with a calm demeanor. However, I did not retort. Arguing with Bob here and then, having him perpetually visit his parents' house would also be a problem. "Take care." I couldn't say anything else and just saw Bob off. From then on, Bob spent more time away from home. Until now, he often came home around 8 p.m. on weekdays, but there were times when he didn't return even by the next morning. He was almost never home on weekends, and my loneliness just grew. When I returned from work and called out, there was no response at all, and the room was pitch dark. He must be at his parents' house again. With Bob's absence, I often found myself downhearted. However, when Bob was home, he began to annoy me more and more. That day, Bob was uncharacteristically at home, but he made an unthinkable request of me. "Jane told me you haven't given a housewarming gift yet. You're so stingy. You're getting a bonus soon, right? Buy her a designer bag or something," Bob said, as if I must do so. "A housewarming gift? Why do I have to give one? Why don't you do it, Bob?" I responded in kind, but Bob instantly got angry. "You married into this family, so Jane's your family too, isn't she? Don't you think it's ill-mannered not to even be able to do a simple thing like giving a gift to family?" Bob berated me. The lecture from Bob went on for about an hour. In the end, he only said, "Anyway, just make sure to give Jane and Hannah a gift before leaving the house. He's likely gone to his parents' house." "I've never received anything from Jane," I murmured quietly. A few days later, I got a call from Jane. "Hello, you heard from Bob, didn't you? You really don't think things through. Normally, you give a housewarming gift," Jane stated as if she deserved it. I got irritated at the selfish attitude, so I retaliated. "You've never done anything for us either, have you? Even at our wedding, we didn't get a gift from you." During the wedding, Jane said with a smile, "We're family, so we don't need a wedding gift, right?" and handed over an empty gift envelope. "But there's nothing inside, is there?" I asked. Even when I asked, Jane put on an innocent face. "I did buy the envelope, right? I'm so nice, aren't I?" Jane said with full confidence. I was at a loss for words at Jane's utter lack of common sense, and Jane had absolutely no restraint. She heartily ate the wedding meal and drank several drinks outside of the course. Even when I handed Jane the catalog gift for the guests, she complained, "Aren't there any luxurious items? If there were, I could take home several." Caroline, you really don't think things through. That was the outcome, with her complaining like that. Remembering all that, Jane replied with a scoff, "You're my brother's wife. I don't need to give you anything, do I? You're the lowest in our family hierarchy. Rather, it's only natural for you to honor me. If you understand, go buy a new designer bag quickly." I was astounded at the way Jane spoke, unable to say anything. Hannah strikes up a conversation. "Caroline, make sure you buy my bag too. It has to be the one exclusive to the Fifth Avenue store, or I won't forgive you." "Bye, Hannah," laughing loudly with a ha-ha-ha. Hung up just like that. Unbelievable. Why am I the only one who has to endure this? I heaved a big sigh. After that, Bob just stopped coming home. Whenever he did come back, he would take money from my wallet without any regard for my desperate attempts to stop him. "You're always at home, so you're not going to use the money, right? I'll use it for something worthwhile. Be grateful." Waving a few bills, Bob left the house. I couldn't take this anymore. I was becoming worn out from Bob's selfish actions. Then one day, the doorbell rang, and I opened the front door. "Hello," I said, and someone who appeared to be a mover said, "Is this the residence of Mr. Bob Smith? We'll start moving the stuff right away," and began bringing a multitude of boxes into the house. I hurriedly tried to stop him, saying, "Wait a minute, we didn't order this." However, the mover responded with a slight troubled look. "It's Mr. Bob Smith's residence, right? We received a request directly from him." Perplexed by the mover's reply, I immediately called Bob. Fortunately, Bob answered right away. In the background of the call, I could hear the crude laughter of what seemed to be Jane and Hannah. I confronted Bob. "There are movers here bringing box after box into our house. What's going on?" Then, Bob said something completely unexpected. "Oh, did the stuff for Jane and Hannah arrive? From today, we're going to be supporting them." "I don't need your opinion, got it," Bob declared triumphantly over the phone. In the background, Jane started to speak. "Welcome aboard. Since you don't have kids, you must be thrilled to take care of our Hannah, right? Be grateful." Hannah voiced her displeasure with a tinge of offense. "What? This old lady is going to be like a parent? So embarrassing. I can't tell my friends." I was at a loss for words due to Bob's sudden declaration. Surely the in-laws' house must have become too cramped, prompting Jane to plead with him. "Our house is bigger and has spare rooms." No doubt they were requested by Jane and Hannah, who knew about this. It seemed like Bob only had Jane and Hannah on his mind. There was not a shred of consideration for me. I might as well discard such a husband. I made up my mind as I remained silent. Bob continued to issue orders. "Additional baggage will arrive in a week. I bought new furniture for Jane and Hannah online, so make sure to get things sorted out. We'll stay at our parents' place until then. We can't live in a room scattered with boxes." Bob said so with a laugh. Hey, isn't this too pitiful for Caroline? She has to sort out our stuff all by herself. Jane was also snickering. "It's our precious belongings. Handle them with care." Hannah had the audacity to demand. I wanted to hang up this call so badly. "All right." I simply said that and immediately hung up the phone. Right after hanging up the phone, I swiftly sprang into action. A week later, Bob called again. "Did the additional baggage arrive? Did you tidy up the room properly?" Bob probably wants to know the current state of the house. He seemed somewhat anxious. Unable to calm down, so I smiled sweetly. "Yep, the stuff arrived, and I just moved into a new place." I responded in a deliberately cheerful tone. "Ha, a new place." Bob muttered and then was stunned. In fact, on the day Jane and Hannah's belongings first arrived, I promptly sprang into action and headed to a local real estate agent, directly negotiating to find a place to live. Initially, they declined, stating it was impossible, as most places require renovations before moving in or have handover procedures, meaning you can't move in on the same day. However, After checking with several agents, I was introduced to a women-only shared housing. It came with automatic locks, providing a safe environment for women to live in. The bathroom, toilet, and kitchen were shared, and electricity and gas were already set up, allowing for immediate use. Additionally, a cleaning service came regularly, making it a well-thought-out housing option. Since it was furnished, minimal luggage would not be a problem. According to the real estate agent, there was just one room available. I'd like to see the room right away. I immediately requested from the agent. They took me to view it straight away. And just by taking one look inside the room, I decided I'll take it. When I shared this story, Bob was visibly shaken, even over the phone. Moving out on your own is utterly unreasonable, isn't it? We're a married couple. Apologize to me right now and come home, Bob scolded me. Jane, perhaps shaken, hysterically asked, "What's happening with our room?" Hannah too yelled angrily, "Don't mess with us, old hack." Wang didn't rebut. Bob said, as if he thought of something clever, "Do you think it's okay to do such a selfish thing? If we get divorced, you'll be the one in trouble, you know." "That's right. With your age and looks, you won't find another suitor in the future, right? You're just a plain old lady. Your future is looking pretty bleak." "How pitiful." "Serves you right," Jane said, sounding rather pleased. In the background over the phone, Hannah was laughing and saying, "The old lady's done for." At that moment, Bob said, sounding smug, "If you apologize to us sincerely from now on, I'll forgive you. Unlike you, we're kind after all," he snorted through his nose, laughing. In the background of the call, Jane and Hannah were shouting in agreement, so I decided to set the record straight. Actually, Bob should be the one apologizing, don't you think? "I know about the affair you're having." Bob was visibly shaken. The truth is, Bob had been cheating for over 3 months. The other woman was a colleague from his workplace. "How did you find out?" "I thought I'd been utterly discreet," Bob asked, his voice trembling with fear. He must have been so sure he wouldn't get caught, so it wasn't surprising he reacted that way. Being the kind-hearted person that I am, I decided to tell him. "I hired a private investigator just in case, because you've hardly been home, right? I thought maybe you were cheating." Good thing I trusted my instincts, and since Bob stayed silent, I just kept on going. I was shocked when the PI got back to me. They finished the investigation in 3 days. "You were seeing her every day, huh? Those meals out with Jane and Hannah were only on your days off, it seems," I said, laughing. According to the PI's findings, Bob had been gallivanting around with his mistress every day after work. The money he'd likely been taking from my wallet must have been for her. Bob and his mistress were often close together, making it easy for the PI to get good pictures. "I'm going to divorce you, Bob, and I'll be demanding alimony, and of course, from your colleague, the mistress as well. Expect a certified letter at your office." Smirking at Bob after receiving the PI's results, I headed straight to a law firm. Even the lawyers seemed rather taken aback by the conclusive evidence I presented. "How dare you?" Bob spat out, clearly irate. When the certified letter arrives at the company, even without opening it, they'll probably have a pretty good idea of what's going on. It's not just going to Bob, but to his mistress at the same company. Surely, everyone at the office will find out about their affair. "Hey, Bob, are you okay?" The situation has taken a dark turn, and Jane sounded anxious. Jane must have been planning to have Bob and me take care of life's chores for her, intending to lead a leisurely life. Jane has a long history of being a housewife, and it's unlikely she can start working now. Bob is the only one to rely on, and it can't be helped, I guess. "Bob, what are you going to do?" "I haven't worked a day since graduating from high school, and there's no way I'm doing a part-time job now." Hannah seems slightly troubled as well. Even when Jane and Hannah blame him, Bob remains silent, unable to say anything. I delivered a further blow to Bob. "Bob, you probably haven't saved any money, have you? It's said in the investigation report that you've been generously spending on your mistress, even bought her the new designer handbag. Maybe you're in debt too." I dropped a bomb, and whether Bob is shaken up, he can't find the words. Ignoring him, Jane is yelling at him. What? You don't buy them for me. But why did you get them for your mistress? Are you kidding me? Plus debt? How much do you owe? I hate you, Bob. Even though I begged so much, you never bought me anything. Hannah also scolds Bob in a high-pitched voice. On the other side of the phone, Jane and Hannah are noisily complaining. Caroline, I really am sorry, so please handle these two somehow. Bob pleaded with me in an exhausted voice. But I have no intention of forgiving Bob. Why don't you deal with it yourself? I'm not involved, and it's what you deserve. Better tell your mistress soon. If you dilly-dally, a certified mail will reach your company, you know? I said to Bob with a smirk. Damn, Bob seemed frustrated. Ignoring such a Bob, I spoke. Well then, do your best, and please give me plenty of alimony. I hung up the phone right there. After hanging up, there were several calls from Bob, but I ignored them. Let Bob and Jane struggle as much as they want. I muttered quietly and set Bob's contact to block incoming calls. After that, my divorce with Bob was finalized. Initially, Bob resisted because there was dual income. Until now, Bob could afford to live even while he just messed around. With just Bob's income, maintaining the lifestyle we've had until now is certainly not feasible. It seems like Bob understands that, which is why he doesn't want to divorce me. However, I have decisive evidence of Bob's infidelity. Ultimately, I conveyed to him that I have absolutely no intention of reconciling, and that I will take legal action if he doesn't agree to the divorce any longer. With that, Bob, hanging his head down, said, I'll agree to the divorce, and stamped the divorce papers. So I demanded alimony from Bob and settlement for emotional damage from his partner. The amount was determined while being informed about the going rate from my lawyer. I believe it's a fair amount. In fact, Bob's partner paid it promptly. Apparently, she borrowed it from her parents after explaining the situation. However, it was a steep amount for Bob. Can it be reduced? Even though he said that numerous times, I ultimately rejected Bob's request during the meeting with our lawyers at the law office. How about I add on the money you stole from my wallet? I cheerfully asked. Bob turned pale as a ghost. That amount is fine. In the end, Bob, trembling, agreed. After that, both Bob and his partner resigned from their company. The reason was that their affair was exposed within the company. It seems that the delivery of a certified document brought attention to the relationship between the two. Even if the contents of the envelope were unknown, an envelope from a divorce law office tends to be pretty self-explanatory. One can generally guess what's inside. Eventually, Bob resigned because things got uncomfortable. Being the subject of juicy gossip around the office, perhaps he couldn't stand it. After leaving the company, Bob has been working in day labor via an agency. Due to his age, it seems he couldn't find another job right away, but payments won't wait. He has living expenses plus the installment payments of alimony to me, and the mortgage still has a long way to go. Moreover, the debts he likely incurred during his affair came to light. Life's probably going to be pretty tough, I bet. Sometimes I get messages from Bob through the lawyer to me. I was wrong. Please take me back. I'm begging you. I'm barely scraping by. If I'd known this would happen, I would have been nicer to Caroline, Bob says, reportedly weeping in front of the lawyer. I think he's really backed into a corner, but it's too late now. And the situation for Jane and Hannah doesn't look good either. Currently, they are living with Bob, but since Bob has no money, their living situation seems dire. One day, I got a message from Jane on my cell. I had blocked Bob's number, but I hadn't blocked Jane's. Seems like that backfired. Wondering what she could possibly want now, I answered the call. Hello, and the moment I answered, Jane begged me, please help us. We're living with Bob, but he has no money, and our electricity and gas are going to be shut off. We don't even have anything left to eat, Jane spoke in an exhausted voice. I was surprised that their living situation had become so desperate, but I had no intention of helping, so I brushed Jane off coldly. Why don't you work? You're healthy, aren't you, Jane? You used to work back in the day, right? Then Hannah, presumably next to Jane, spoke up. Caroline, isn't that harsh? You're working at a major company. You wrangled money out of Bob and his affair partner. So you must have some financial leeway, right? So you have a duty to support Mom and me. If you tell us your address, we'll come there. Take care of us. Hannah apparently has no intention of working even now. It's truly exasperating considering she's still young. Biting back a sigh, I conveyed my stance. Now that I'm divorced from Bob, I'm a complete stranger to you, Hannah. I have no intention of supporting you, and I don't want anything more to do with you. Don't call me again. As soon as I finished speaking, Hannah shouted, "Don't mess with me, you old hag. You should just quietly take care of us. Tell us your address right now." After that, they kept shrieking for quite a while. Their characters will likely never change for the rest of their lives. I have nothing to do with this anymore. Goodbye. With that, I hung up the phone. I immediately blocked Jane's number. I never want to deal with them again. In their current state, they will likely face more hardship, but it's their own laziness that brought this upon them. I think it's fine if they continue to suffer. A year later, I decided to move out of the shared housing. It's a bit sad to leave where I made friends. The reason I'm leaving this fun and lively place is because I decided to adopt a dog. I met the dog at an adoption event a dog-loving friend invited me to, and I went along. That's where I had a destiny-filled encounter. While other dogs were being friendly with various people, this dog was different. It stared at me intently the moment our eyes met. I thought this dog might need me. After that, I attended the adoption events many times and deepened my bond with him. After several visits, joyfully, I was allowed to adopt him. However, the shared housing doesn't allow pets, so sadly, I had to move out. Now I live in a pet-friendly apartment. Dogs don't betray you, and it's so cute when I call. He runs towards me joyfully. There will probably be various difficulties in the future, but I'm not alone anymore. I want to move forward, facing forward, supporting each other with this beloved dog.
Dee is retiring, so to celebrate, I'm taking our parents to Germany today. I'm using your platinum card for the trip and plan to have a great time with it. This is going to be an amazing trip. What are you talking about? Exactly what I said. No, I don't understand what you mean by exactly what I said. Please explain. We need to hurry. Okay, we'll go soon. Sorry, I have to leave now. I'll hear the details when I get back. Just one thing. Does the credit card work? Huh? My unemployed husband Jeremy took my credit card to take our parents on a trip. I've tolerated a lot from Jeremy, but this seems like the perfect chance to teach him a lesson. When he comes back from the trip, he'll have some big regrets. I'm Maria, a 35-year-old company employee. After graduating from a top university, I got a job at a major company and have been doing well there. Even though I'm only 35, I earn enough to support Jeremy, who doesn't work, and a child if we had one. But we don't have kids yet, though we're thinking about it soon. With a good job and income, I should be happy in my married life, but I'm not. The idea of having a child is just a possibility, but Jeremy not working is real. I'm not hungry for dinner because I ate snacks. That's fine, but what about your job search? I didn't go for an interview today. I just stayed home looking at job websites. Jeremy quit his job a year ago and has been job hunting since. Actually, he's been working part-time but doesn't stay in any job for long. He starts a job, quits soon after, takes a break, and then looks for another part-time job. You're looking at part-time jobs again, aren't you? I'm looking at both full-time and part-time. Why don't you stop looking for part-time jobs and focus on finding a full-time position? I know, but everything has its own timing. I wish Jeremy would find a steady job, but he can't be pushed too hard. He quit his last job because he had a conflict with his boss over work policies. That boss was known for being difficult. Jeremy stood up to him as the office representative with support from his colleagues. But when the situation got worse, his colleagues sided with the boss, not Jeremy. Because of that, Jeremy lost the boss's approval, felt betrayed by his colleagues, and found it hard to stay, so he left the company. Jeremy, dinner's ready. Can you bring it here? After quitting his job, Jeremy became reclusive and stayed in his room. After about 3 weeks, he started coming out and helping with household chores. All the dishes, really? Thanks. Then it's all yours. Yeah, I've got nothing but time, Jeremy said with a smile, but it didn't seem very genuine. After another 3 weeks, he started looking for jobs again. I have an interview today. Is it your top choice? Yeah, I'm going to get this job and start over. I'm rooting for you. Do your best. A month after quitting, Jeremy started job hunting seriously, but after another month, he still hadn't found a job. Why am I always getting rejected? Damn it, it's all my old company's fault. Don't get frustrated. You'll find something good. Of course I'm frustrated. I didn't do anything wrong. Jeremy might not be entirely blameless, but what happened at his last job wasn't completely his fault either. Still, quitting because of interpersonal issues doesn't look good to potential employers. It feels like I can't do anything right anymore. That's not true. You have an interview tomorrow. Let's work on your resume. It's pointless. I'm not going tomorrow. The constant rejections wore Jeremy down, but after a while, he became defiant. One day, I came home to find torn-up resumes on the living room floor. Knowing the interview didn't go well, I chose my words carefully. Can you throw that trash in the bin? I'm done. Done with what? Job hunting. We can live on your income, right? I don't need to work. True, we could live on my income alone. Some people don't work and do a great job as full-time homemakers, but that's not Jeremy's situation. He's just avoiding dealing with the tough realities. I understand his reluctance after the bad experience at his last job and the unsuccessful job hunt, but we need to face this issue directly. I decided to be patient with Jeremy for now. Jeremy, you still haven't found a job. What's your plan? I've worked hard before. This is just an extended break. I'm not just resting. I'm studying for the future. That's good to hear. Since Jeremy quit his job, his parents, Linda and Brandon, started visiting us more often. They were probably worried about him. Hearing that Jeremy was preparing for his next job seemed to ease their concerns, but it was a lie. The beer will run out today. Can you pick some up on your way home? It's running out again. You drink too much. Try to cut down a bit. Fine, I won't ask you again. I'll buy it myself. Jeremy wasn't studying or job hunting. Instead, he spent his days watching TV and drinking beer. He probably didn't want others to know he was unemployed. I didn't want to hurt Jeremy by telling my in-laws the truth, so I decided to keep quiet about his excuses. But after over 5 months without job hunting, I decided it was time to address it. Jeremy, maybe it's time to start job hunting. You seem more settled now. What? It's been less than half a year since the problems at my last job. You want me to work again so soon after that? I just think the break has been a bit long. Stop nagging. You don't understand my situation because your job is going well. I have my own struggles, you know. Everyone has work problems and relationship issues. We all try to solve them. Let's work through this together. I get it. I'll look for a job. Jeremy walked out in the middle of our conversation. It seemed my words had hurt him, but him agreeing to look for a job felt like a positive step. I decided to wait until he was in a better mood to apologize. I got a job because of your nagging. That's great. Where? At a nearby supermarket. So, you'll need to learn and work hard, right? It's just part-time. No need to work too hard. Part-time or not, a job is a job. Is that a problem? I wanted to say something to Jeremy, but maybe starting a little work could help him get back on track. I decided to observe and see how it goes. I'm home. Jeremy, you're back. How's the job? I quit the supermarket part-time job. Why? It hasn't been that long. A college student there was being bossy, telling me to always put the vegetable boxes at the bottom in storage. It felt like harassment. That student was probably just showing you how to do the job. In many workplaces, even a college student can be a senior. Jeremy kept finding new jobs but couldn't stick with any of them. It's been a year, and he still hasn't managed to keep a job for long. Jeremy, what job are you doing now? I'm working part-time at a pub now. I've never worked in food and beverage before, but it's interesting. I think I've finally found my calling. Really? That's great, but isn't the pay from a part-time restaurant job kind of low? That's fine. I'm currently apprenticing and aiming to go independent. So you plan to own your own place someday? Exactly. The income is small now, but I'm working hard for that goal. Then take this. Treat yourself to something nice for once. Jeremy continued to put on a good front in front of his parents, but it was all lies. He quit the pub job just 4 days after this conversation and even took an allowance from his parents. I couldn't help but feel disappointed in my husband, so I decided it was time to be firmer. Hey Jeremy, we need to talk later. I'm at a good part in the movie. You can pause it. I took the remote control from the table, paused the movie, and started the conversation. It's just pressing pause at a crucial moment. What's up? Jeremy, you're 38, right? That's a prime working age. Don't you think about the future? Spending all day at home drinking and watching TV isn't a plan. The future? There are plenty of 38-year-olds who aren't working. Many people enjoy life without a job. True, but those people usually have something else they're passionate about. Do you have anything like that? Yeah. I know you're upset about me not working. I'll look for another part-time job. Jeremy seemed set on sticking with part-time work. Given his reasons for leaving previous jobs and his struggles with job hunting, I had tried to be gentle, but it was time for him to get serious. I needed to be stricter. One day at work, I got a text from Jeremy. Dad's retiring, so we're going to Germany to celebrate starting today. I'm borrowing your platinum card to splurge on the trip. I panicked and called him right away. What do you mean, a trip? Exactly what I said. I don't understand. Please explain. There are so many problems here. It's okay to celebrate Brandon's retirement, but he should have asked me before using my money and borrowing the credit card. It feels like stealing. And why am I paying for a trip to Germany that I'm not even going on? Jeremy was probably bragging to his parents, claiming the money was from his savings. The thought of it infuriated me, but one thing Jeremy said caught my attention. You mentioned borrowing a credit card. The one for our house? Yeah. Why do I have a platinum card? Some people think you need a high income for it, but that's not true. Your credit history, stable income, and other factors matter, and it's achievable even in your 40s. The annual fee is high, but I use it for the benefits and points. However, that credit card is in my wallet. So you took the credit card from home? Yeah, so I'm counting on you for the payment. Jeremy was excited about his trip to Germany and spoke to me in a provocative tone. I had been patient with him for a long time, but this seemed like a good opportunity to address the situation. Jeremy thought he was being clever by taking my credit card and acting all cheerful, but he was in for a surprise. What are you doing? We need to go. Got it. I'm coming. Sorry, I need to move on now. I'll hear the details when I get back. Just one more thing. The credit card you took won't work. What? That can't be right. It's in Maria's name, and the expiry date is this month. It's short, but it shouldn't be a problem. You're lying, right? Maria, you're lying to stop me from using the card, aren't you? Yes, it expires this month. That's why I've already received a new credit card. What does that mean? So, I have 2 credit cards right now. When a new one is activated, the old one sometimes stops working. I've already started using the new card, so the one you took won't work. You're kidding, right? You think I'm lying? If you don't believe me, I can send you the link to the credit card website, or you could just try using the card yourself. It would be interesting to see you try to pay with a card that doesn't work. This credit card really won't work. Hey, hurry up. I hear his parents calling him in the background. But Jeremy, realizing the card won't work, seems too flustered to pay them any attention. What should I do? I told them I'd pay for everything except the round-trip travel. Oh, so they covered the flight? Yes. Dad felt bad about having all the trip costs covered. What should I do? I'm about to take a cab, and I don't even have money for that. That's not my problem. You said you'd pay for everything except the flight. Using my credit card in the first place was wrong. Pay with your own money. How can I? I don't have any money. Exactly. Jeremy, you haven't been working seriously. It's your fault for trying to look good by taking your parents on a trip without having the money. I'm at work, so I have to hang up now. I just wanted to tell you about the credit card. Wait, I hung up and went back to work. Jeremy, unable to pay for even the cab, would have to come clean to his parents. That night, after finishing work, I got a call from Laura. I heard from Jeremy that he tried to use your credit card and lied about working. I'm sorry for the trouble. No need to apologize, Laura. I'm sorry about the credit card issues. Are you okay with the money? We'll cover the trip's costs when we get back. I'll make sure Jeremy apologizes and finds a job right away. I'm sorry, Laura, but I'm considering divorcing Jeremy. Divorce because of this? It's part of it, but Jeremy has been taking money from me for a while. What? I stopped giving Jeremy money to curb his drinking. He started a part-time job and bought his own alcohol, but the salary wasn't enough for daily drinking. Jeremy began stealing money from my wallet to buy alcohol. Over the year, he repeatedly took amounts ranging from $7 to $70, which added up to a significant sum. I had been strict, hoping he'd change, but when he stole my credit card for his trip, it was clear he had no intention of improving. I respect your decision. Should I tell Jeremy about the divorce? Could you just tell him I want a divorce? We'll discuss the details when he gets home. About an hour later, the next morning after my call with Laura, Jeremy called. He must have heard about the divorce from her, but I had asked her to wait until he was back to discuss it. Too exhausted to deal with it, I decided not to answer. The next morning, after returning from work, I found Jeremy at home. He had cut his trip short. I'll work properly now. Please don't leave me, he pleaded as I entered the living room. Seeing Jeremy, he immediately apologized. His regrets seemed sincere, but came too late. He had a whole year to change and still asked for another chance. I had warned him repeatedly, but he squandered every opportunity. I'm not going to give Jeremy another chance because he gave up on me. My mind is made up. Can you leave? Please don't say that. If you don't leave, should I call someone to help you pack your things? I'll move out only if you can afford the rent here. Jeremy fell silent. He didn't even have the money for next month's rent, let alone any income. My words and the reality of the impending divorce made him realize the severity of his situation. With nothing to take, Jeremy seemed to be leaving the house, probably heading to his parents' place. I considered asking if he had money for transportation, but Jeremy isn't a child. He should manage his own affairs, money or not. I watched him leave, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. After leaving, Jeremy went to his parents' house. Later, I received a call from Linda. My parents-in-law let Jeremy stay for one night, but then asked him to leave the next day. They were worried he might become too reliant on them if he stayed. They wanted to create a situation where he had to fend for himself. It must have been tough for them to send their son away, but they felt it was necessary for his recovery. Kicked out from his parents' home, Jeremy came back to our house, pleading with me. Please help me. I've got nowhere to go and no money. That's the result of your own actions. You need to handle it yourself. Everyone faces hardships. Sometimes it's necessary to ask for help, but all you've done in the past year is abandon your responsibilities and do as you please. I didn't let Jeremy into the house and turned him away from the doorstep. The divorce went through eventually. Despite his reluctance, with the support of his parents, it happened faster than expected. I don't know what happened to Jeremy after we split. He's probably still jumping from job to job and making excuses for himself. I used to think I'd feel lonely without Jeremy, but I was surprised to find that I didn't feel lonely at all. Instead, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Living with Jeremy had been incredibly stressful. His attitude and constant need for reassurance kept me on edge. I was always walking on eggshells, afraid of saying something that might upset him. Now, without him around, I don't have to worry about that anymore. My life has become much more comfortable. I hadn't realized how much of a burden our relationship had been. I was constantly trying to support him both emotionally and financially, and it drained me. Now I can focus on myself and my own well-being. I'm relieved that I didn't let Jeremy drag me down with him. I was always trying to help him, hoping he would change, but it never happened. Letting go of that responsibility has been freeing. I no longer have to cater to anyone else's needs or deal with anyone else's problems. I can finally live my life on my own terms without having to accommodate anyone else. It's a fresh start, and I'm embracing it fully. I have more time for myself, more energy to pursue my own interests, and a clearer mind to think about my future. I'm grateful for this new chapter in my life, free from the stress and worry that Jeremy brought into it.
Our reservation for 7 people is accurate, and I kindly request a separate seat for a lady not included in the count. This request, typical of Elizabeth, my husband's mother, echoes her penchant for making loud demands and teasing me. However, today marks a turning point as I've resolved to expose a secret she's been keeping during our family gathering. I'm Natalie, a 28-year-old chef who graduated successfully from culinary school. I work at a highly rated Western restaurant in the city where I met George, a friendly customer who later became my husband. George inherited a historic electronics store, a beloved establishment in the community for 3 generations. Last year, George's father passed away, and he assumed the role of the 3rd-generation owner. My upbringing was in a household filled with culinary professionals: my father, mother, and even my brother. Growing up in such an environment exposed me to various cooking techniques and knowledge from a young age. Thanks to this upbringing and my innate talent, I graduated at the top of my class from culinary school. Despite my usual reserved demeanor, I've always been confident in my culinary skills. However, after marrying George, that confidence began to waver due to our close living arrangement with Elizabeth, which started shortly after our marriage. George's decision to live with his parents, a common practice in his family, came as a surprise. I had hoped to enjoy the early days of marriage just the 2 of us, but George's living arrangement was not disclosed earlier. Regretting it now wouldn't change anything. Living with Elizabeth turned out better than expected initially. She was kind, buying me treats from my favorite bakery, and even took on most of the household chores. However, there was one concern: the seasoning in her meals. Each dish was excessively salty, and while I initially attributed it to her northern origins, it seemed different from the preferences of others from the same region. I have a colleague from the north who prefers a lighter salt taste, making Elizabeth's dishes stand out. For instance, her stew, with vibrant ingredients, was overshadowed by an intense sauce, making it feel like directly putting concentrated sauce in my mouth. Doubts about whether this was the standard taste lingered, and my husband's comment about adjusting the taste to be lighter than usual only intensified my inner questioning. These days, consistently consuming Elizabeth's cooking seemed to have dulled my taste buds, creating a sense of dissatisfaction, even when preparing dishes at work. Doubts about my own sense of taste crept in, but fortunately, the head chef conducted the final taste checks, ensuring no major issues. Nevertheless, the heavy seasoning in Elizabeth's daily meals became a serious concern for me. To cope with this, I devised a plan. One solution was to wake up earlier than Elizabeth and prepare my own breakfast. While this noon routine prevented a decline in my work performance, it unintentionally led to a frosty attitude from Elizabeth. When I greeted her in the morning, she began to ignore my words and pass by. One evening, when I sought her opinion on a dish I had put a lot of effort into, she responded with criticism, questioning if I had seasoned it properly. Despite my explanation, she insisted it was bland, adding a significant amount of sauce to the dish. I couldn't help but feel that there might be some reason or background to her change in attitude. My husband has 2 older sisters, both of whom have established families. They welcomed me warmly from the beginning of our marriage and offered support if I ever had trouble with their mother. However, Emily, one of the sisters, had a different experience. As I helped with food preparation for her daughter's grand birthday celebration, the dining table was filled with a variety of distinctively unique and appetizing dishes. During the party, Emily's daughter expressed dislike for the stew, commenting on the heavy seasoning. When Emily suggested learning cooking tips from me, Elizabeth angrily exclaimed and left the scene, leaving me puzzled about the underlying issues in her behavior. I had some regrets about offering to help with the cooking from the beginning. The party ended abruptly amid a sour mood. While I believe Emily might have meant her words lightly, it was clear that Elizabeth had put love and effort into her dishes as well. It felt unjust for our heartfelt efforts to be belittled with a mere comment. That night, I lacked the courage to express my apologies to Elizabeth. From the next day onward, life became increasingly tough. Elizabeth would recklessly season the meals I carefully prepared, and on the worst days, she would even throw them away midway through eating. Seeking support from my husband in these trying times, I turned to him for help. However, his response was less than supportive, suggesting that maybe I had antagonized her and needed to listen more. As days passed, the strain in our marital relationship deepened. My husband started coming home late, claiming it was due to work, and even began missing family events. We were only married for half a year, so the idea of divorce felt premature. However, another hurdle emerged when Elizabeth tripped on our stairs and severely injured her leg. Despite Emily's kind offer to help with her care, Elizabeth insisted that, as the wife of the house, it was only natural for me to take care of her. This declaration changed my daily life dramatically, and attending to her needs became a relentless routine, even during work hours. Eventually, my colleagues' patience wore thin, leading me to resign from my job. When Elizabeth learned about my resignation, she seemed gleeful. From then on, my days were consumed with meeting Elizabeth's spontaneous demands at all hours, leaving my mind and body worn down. My husband's reduced presence at home added to my distress, and I began to doubt his reasons for working late. Pondering our next steps, I decided it was time to teach both Elizabeth and my husband a lesson. A few days later, during breakfast, I brought up the idea of divorce, shocking both of them. They questioned the sudden decision, expressing surprise and disbelief. My husband even suggested that my actions could tarnish our family's reputation. In response, I explained my dissatisfaction with the household environment and my determination for change. Confronted with my newfound resolve, they were taken aback. My husband apologized, expressing a willingness to be more attentive to our home life. He even suggested a break, understanding if I wanted to go to my parents for a change of pace. However, he requested that I still help Elizabeth due to her leg injury. Despite feeling disoriented, I sensed a hint of resentment in his words. I asked him to reflect on the situation, expressing my hope for positive changes if we continue to live together. I took a deep breath and calmly replied, "I'll think about it." At that moment, a smug smile appeared on their faces, revealing the evident blood ties between them. For the next few days, the atmosphere at home shifted. My husband began returning home earlier from work, but this improvement was short-lived. He soon started coming home late again, and Elizabeth's behavior reverted to its previous coldness. Despite her leg injury showing no signs of improvement, Elizabeth frequently went out without explanation. As I questioned her actions, I soon discovered a shocking truth. One day, my cell phone rang incessantly, with both my husband and Elizabeth expressing anger about me leaving Elizabeth alone. I sensed they wouldn't understand my perspective, and I revealed that I was at my parents' house. Days later, enjoying a peaceful time at my parents' house, I received an unexpected message from the one person I least wanted to be involved with, Elizabeth. The message contained an apology for her past actions and an invitation to her upcoming birthday party. Though reluctant, considering it as a bit of a luxury treat, I decided to attend. The venue for the party was an upscale restaurant near the station, renowned for a new chef trained in France. Upon arriving, I saw George and Elizabeth waiting with smug expressions. The attendees included Emily, her husband, and their children, making it a small gathering of 8 people. As we entered the restaurant, I confirmed my reservation for 7 people. However, Elizabeth requested a separate seat for me, surprising everyone. The waiter guided me to a slightly hidden seat, and as the evening progressed, the anticipated meat dish raised expectations. While delicious-smelling dishes were constantly brought to Emily's table, George and Elizabeth received none. Elizabeth's loud complaint about the delay in their food drew the attention of nearby customers, leaving me in a state of surprise and anticipation for the unfolding events of the night. I deeply apologize. The chef is preparing something special for the 2 of you, so it's taking a little extra time. Please wait for just a bit longer. Despite her annoyance, Elizabeth's face showed a hint of satisfaction, knowing they were getting special treatment. Soon after, footsteps could be heard coming from the kitchen, and their expressions froze in surprise. It was me, dressed in a chef's hat and apron. "What, Natalie? Why are you dressed like that? Is this your surprise?" While Emily and her husband enjoyed my appearance, George and Elizabeth were taken aback. I gently smiled and set the specially arranged dishes before them. I've prepared a special menu just for the two of you. At the center of Elizabeth's plate, a beautiful black lump was garnished with a rich sauce. I'd accentuated this using a special sauce. I'll add a little more topping to this sauce. Pouring more sauce on the dish, I felt satisfied seeing Elizabeth's surprised face. And here's a special dish for you, sir. On George's plate, various delicacies were beautifully arranged, each shining brightly. Please try it with this special sauce. Placing an elegant sauce bottle on the table, I watched the service. Emily's daughter laughed cheerfully, and they both looked a bit surprised yet intrigued. However, their expressions soon turned to anger. This is unbelievable. I've never seen such inappropriate service. Call the manager. George exclaimed. I calmly replied, I'm the person in charge here. Is there a problem? Elizabeth joined in. Are you the one allowing such disrespectful service? This is unforgivable. We're going to exercise our rights as customers and sue you. I continued, feel free. But we're also considering legal action for the disruption you've caused. How dare you? It turned out that they often visited this restaurant and were always demanding. The staff already saw them as problematic customers, and now, with my brother Peter managing the restaurant, they were being treated impartially. Peter, Elizabeth, and George were utterly stunned upon realizing that the person in charge was my brother. In reality, this popular restaurant was a product of Peter's diligent management and hard work. They had not been informed of this fact before. Peter had previously undergone advanced training in France and couldn't attend our wedding. Although he had sent a generous gift, he had never spoken with Elizabeth or George. However, he remembered their faces from family pictures. We didn't know any of this. Could you explain? Emily asked, cheerful, but with a slight shadow in her eyes. Actually, we came here to dine with some shopkeepers from the town's marketplace. It's trendy these days to have dinner in such modern restaurants. At that moment, a staff member approached politely. During your last visit, you left behind an item. Please allow me to return it. Handing over a shimmering earring, Emily added, you often dine here with men wearing earrings. Isn't that a bit risky? George's face momentarily froze in surprise at Emily's question. How did I come to know of this secret? A few weeks ago, I harbored suspicions and decided to hire a detective to investigate. The result was a collection of photos depicting George enjoying dinners with another woman at this restaurant, and even moments where they entered a hotel together. To be honest, I felt more relieved than betrayed. Marrying him was a mistake. I'm planning to file for divorce. Just be prepared. This was the first time George had openly spoken about divorce. But for me, it was an anticipated moment. Just don't forget to pay the alimony. Don't worry. I recently secured a big business deal, and financially, I'm pretty well off now. I'll gladly pay all of the alimony in full. Hearing that gave me peace of mind. Now about you, Elizabeth. Until now, she had been wide-eyed at the unfolding conversation, known by the staff as a regular at this upscale restaurant. What do you want from me? Since my husband passed away, I don't think anyone has the right to complain about my behavior. However, I had also had a detective thoroughly investigate her secrets. It turned out she had been in a secret relationship for 5 years, even though her husband had passed away just a year ago. What are you talking about? Emily and her siblings, hearing this for the first time, stared at their mother in shocked anger. This revelation was unbearable for them, as they deeply cherished their father. Although I, too, was surprised by the investigation's outcome. When I asked the detective why he knew so much about Elizabeth, it turned out that their father had once hired the same detective agency. You deceived him for so long, even while he was still alive, and George, even while with Natalie, you were seeing another woman. How could you? In Emily and her siblings' eyes, deep anger and disappointment shaped the tense atmosphere at our table, catching the attention of other diners who started glancing our way. We promised to resolve this matter at home and called it a night for the dinner. As I left, I high-fived the restaurant staff and Peter, expressing my gratitude. A few days later, under the stern gaze of Emily and her siblings, George and I proceeded with the formal divorce process. Now I'm free. I won't regret anything, no matter what happens, he stated confidently. I never expected this outcome, even after I told you about my bad leg. I never imagined being treated this way. Ah, watch your step. She recoiled in surprise. In truth, her leg had already healed, yet she had been pretending to be in pain to maintain a superior attitude towards me. Her behavior once again left me in shock. From now on, both she and my husband will be strangers. Although our marriage ended within a short span of a year, I had no regrets whatsoever. When I checked my bank account, I was shocked to see that the alimony from both my husband and his mistress had been deposited simultaneously. It seemed like my husband covered her share as well. Knowing this fact, I could finally view them as no longer being a part of my life. Subsequently, there were some interesting developments regarding my husband and his mistress's relationship. He had gone into debt to pay the hefty alimony, but shortly after our divorce was finalized, she dumped him quite easily. From the information I received from Emily, it was revealed that the woman is infamous in the area for targeting married men. After the episode at the restaurant, we were informed by Peter that the regular patrons were also fed up with George and Elizabeth's antics, and they were elated by our surprise. From then on, the restaurant strictly prohibited those two from entering. Moreover, their dishonest attitudes quickly became known throughout the community. A major contract that my husband had been boasting about was eventually canceled, and his electronics store, sustained by the deep trust of the local community, now faced a challenging future. Elizabeth's subsequent life became quite difficult. Suddenly abandoned by her longtime lover, further medical tests revealed that her unhealthy lifestyle was affecting her health. Her health condition was significantly tied to her own way of living, which wasn't deserving of any sympathy. On the other hand, I was fortunate enough to return to the Western-style restaurant where I used to work. Even though they knew about my past, the staff and management warmly welcomed me back. The spaghetti lady, Emily, and her family still came to this restaurant often, and their presence was a significant support for me. They had decided to completely sever ties with George and Elizabeth. The anger towards their actions, especially after the passing of their father and the revelation of the truth, left a deep wound in their hearts, which seemed unlikely to heal. The joy of cooking holds a significant place in my life. Feeling this happiness is the very moment I cherish the most, and when I feel truly blessed.